It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, episode 243, Shift. And we're going... Get ready for action! Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT. Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by AOL Music and Spinner.com, where you can get free MP3s, exclusive interviews, and more. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 243 for April 12th, 2010. Eat a hot bowl of Nintendo Wiis. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Audible.com. To download 2 free audiobooks of your choice, go to audible.com/twit2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter at audible_com. And by GoToMyPC. Think remote access to your PC is complicated? Think again. It's easy with GoToMyPC. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomypc.com/twit. And by Carbonite, the leader in online backup. Back up your PC or Mac off-site, securely, and automatically. For a free trial offer, plus 2 free months with purchase, go to carbonite.com. Offer code TWIT. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the show that covers all the tech news. Joining us in studio today, I'm really happy to have Mr. Brian Brushwood from Scam School.
Howdy.
And NSFW. Do you see who's sitting over your left shoulder there?
That's Danger Dane Golden, if I'm not mistaken.
Danger Dane Golden. Just be careful, because he could lose it at any moment.
He seems like a nice guy, but we got the secret Dane Golden tapes.
He will cut you.
We had to bleep that sucker? Oh, my God. He swears like a sailor. He's a foul-mouthed fella.
We actually, you remember the first episode we did was the Name That Autocomplete that we did?
Yeah.
Some folks actually put together an entire website where you could play the game yourself at namethatAutocomplete.com.
Oh, what fun.
Yeah, a couple guys, I told them I'd give their names because I couldn't believe it. They busted it out in like 3 days. It was James Thompson did the CSS and Jim Jathos put it together. But we got badges that we made for everything, different achievements. And so the overall winner with the best record gets the King Leo badge. On Name That Autocomplete.
Nice. That's better than We Rule. That's awesome. Name That Autocomplete. Wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah, basically it's the same rules because, you know, the autocomplete's on Google. When you start to type in a person's name, it does the most commonly searched terms with them.
Right.
And the idea is it's kind of Google-proof because it gives you the related search terms. You got to figure out who the person is.
Hey, you sound a little hoarse. You okay? Or are you just too much talking? Or?
2 days of Scam School shoots. We're always at the bars, and you got to shout to be heard.
And it's smoky.
Then last night it was Prager's party. We actually shot at David Prager's place.
Oh, how fun.
And it got a little bit loud for a long time.
Yeah. Also with us, it's great to see you once again, Baratunde Thurston. How are you?
I am wonderful, sir. It's good to be back.
In studio.
Yes, up in Petaluma.
The last time I saw both you guys was Austin, Texas.
Yeah, that was a great time. This is basically a little Austin right now.
Mini South by Southwest right now.
All the important parts.
Yeah, all the good parts. Yes, well, I'll tell you who else is here that really makes it good. It's Veronica Belmont of Techzilla fame.
Hello.
Looking like a movie star in her backlit suite.
I know, it's getting a little bit brighter out there. I apologize for that. I cannot control the weather.
It's going from movie star to like The Matrix. Now she looks like she's in the in that white room in The Matrix.
Yeah, it is. It's that white room behind her. It's great to see you. You went to South by, right?
Yeah, I was only there for 2 days. We did the gadget party did Buzz Out Loud and just hung out for a night or two and then came back.
It's fun. I really enjoyed that. I'm going back next year. I really had a great time.
I'm glad you got to go. It was cool to see the video of you crowd surfing. Loved it.
It was a treat. We should do North by Northwest, maybe.
There we go.
It'd be chillier.
North by Northeast. Let's bring it to Brooklyn.
All right. Brooklyn in the house. So there's so much to talk about. And, last week we just pretty much did the iPad. But I guess we should do a quick run through because we haven't talked to you guys. Baratunde, you have an iPad for the first time. I
have the Onion's company iPad. I had to retrieve it from my boss to make sure he'd hand it over.
Forgot to mention you're the political editor.
Web editor at the Onion.
Yeah.
Online strategy, digital thing person.
Yeah, as well as a stand-up comic and just all-around great guy. And the host of Popular Science's
Future of.
Future of.
At Future of.
I always feel like there's something missing when I say future of.
It's a ... Actually, so it's
Like in search of.
Yeah.
Like Leonard Nimoy.
Future of
Open-ended
ellipses.
show.
Yeah, that's implied.
The ... is implied. So what do you think?
I think this is a beautiful device to both look at and touch. I actually, I hung out last Saturday with a bunch of people who bought iPads, and I pretended to buy one.
You waited in line, but you didn't get one.
I waited in line, and I just held up my backpack when I left. And I
And
yelled,
they
like,
cheered?
we did it, we did it.
Man.
And they patted me on the back,
Oh,
and I exited
man.
the store, and there was this big rush of enthusiasm.
There's a
for-
special place in hell for people who pretend to buy an
There's a
iPad.
special place in hell for cheering to purchase an object.
Actually, you're right.
It was like...
To be honest,
yeah,
you're right.
Yeah, but that said...
So what did you do once you got inside? You just like, they're like, what can you get you? You're like, nothing.
I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, really?
I'm good. I don't need anything,
They
thanks.
kept trying
You
to
got an
upsell
Apple
me
TV around here? I was looking for an
mobile
Apple
Wii.
TV.
Actually, the guy I was with the co-founder of Hootsuite, this really cool dude named
Love
Dario.
Hootsuite. Love
And
Dario,
He came
yeah.
in. He's like, "Yeah, do you guys sell Office?" I'm just here to get some Office.
No, sorry.
Nice.
You must leave.
No, but on the merits of the device itself, I'd say it was a very fun observation to see everybody do the unboxing. Went to a Starbucks where there was Wi-Fi, and half of them realized they couldn't use it because they didn't have their laptops with them.
Oh,
And
you
in
have to
order
activate it.
initialize the
Incredibly
device,
bizarre that you
it's
have
a
to plug it into
tethered
iTunes.
device tethered to a specific cloud, which is Apple, tethered to a computer. So it's not an independent thing.
Well, once
How
you
is
do
that bizarre? I mean, you had to do the same thing with the iPhone when you first
no,
turned
it's true,
on.
but it's-
because you had to subscribe to AT&T service. I
Right.
can kind of understand that. This once you do that weird sync thing, you no longer need to touch
right,
it
but it's
again.
just- It really muted their enthusiasm for
Yeah, I
the first
think
30
so,
minutes.
and
where
rightly
they,
so.
They ripped it open, they're sweating, and tears are coming down their face, and they've finally
there
seen
actual
the
tears?
face of God, and no, they
The
just want
face
Apple
of God,
logo.
and his eyes are closed.
And they had to go home. And like,
God was napping
God's like
at
in
the
sleep
moment.
mode.
I will not look at you.
And then the other shock was after we left the Starbucks, we went out to brunch, and people took them out, and there was no Wi-Fi. And suddenly this device became a beautiful brick.
It really isn't much fun without
It was
Wi-Fi.
useless.
Yeah.
And
I saw a lot of people with them at WonderCon, actually, because it was right down the street from the Moscone Center where people were picking it up at the Apple Store. And then they were just carrying it around WonderCon and getting pictures with like people in cosplay
Posing.
outfits. It was really funny.
Posing, yeah. You have one too, Veronica. You and Ryan sharing one, right? The GDG2 one. Or...
That's the problem I have with it is that you can't really share it. He has one that he's using for review purposes, and I have not purchased one. And I just wish they had multiple user profiles because, that way I could have all my applications. And you mentioned Wii Rule. I can't log out of that and log back in
Right.
and switch
It's your
accounts.
Wii Rule. That's right.
Right. And you can't have multiple
I
instances
think that's
of an
one of
application. So...
That to me is one of the things that I actually like about the iPad is it's an intimate device. It's the most personal of personal.
Yeah, but
computers.
not everyone in a family can afford an
Yes.
intimate luxury
No, I know.
device.
It's an intimate luxury. You're
and
right.
that's one of the fun parts. I mean, you look at the state of the economy, and Apple chooses now to push to really like manufacture demand.
Right.
And in some ways, it's inspiring. In other ways, it's sort of odd. To
Well,
say, like,
I would
Course,
like to.
meaning disgusting.
No, but look, if
Well, it
you
is.
want, you can buy a $250 netbook
Yeah,
that does
yeah.
more if you really want that and has logins, has profiles, has multitasking, has cameras, has
touch it.
flash. It's not as good, in my opinion,
Yeah.
but you can, and that satisfies people. All the people complain about, well, nobody's making you buy an iPad.
No, that's true. No one is making you. It's just I've always. I mean, I've come on the show and said this before. I have this very split Apple opinion where I
Yes,
love the
we all
products,
do.
and I have some concerns.
We're all in that world now.
Well, okay, so here's a process. I was looking for news apps because we're trying to think about what an Onion iPad app might be, and just sort of messing around with ideas. So I wanted to see the top rated news apps.
Right.
So I go to the App Store. I see sort by, and my choices are recent, featured, or like
Top grossing.
yeah, something.
Which, talk about gross.
You cannot sort. You can't sort by customer rating. I can't
That's
find
odd.
the app that most people have rated highly. They have the data.
That's a flaw.
They don't expose that.
Yeah.
Now that's a tiny thing, but you've labeled a 3-finger touch, but you don't let me sort by product rating.
That is a little
That's
odd.
just, it's weird, and I don't think it's just an
That could
oversight
just
because
be-
there's so
You don't think it's an
meticulous.
oversight?
That's a really obvious. Every online store in the world lets you sort by user ratings to see what the community likes the
Well,
best.
why would-
Apple
what
wants
would be
you to
the-
know because they want you to go to the ones they've featured.
They want to control it.
Yeah. They determine what's best.
You know, they
determine
did
the
take
fonts
out,
that
they
work.
finally, in
So it's
iPhone
interesting.
4.0, one of the complaints about iPhone apps, when you remove an iPhone app, it asks you to rate it. And developers hate this because what you get, most of the ratings are people who are uninstalling your app. So
I always wondered about
they're
that.
all negative, right? So finally they listened to developers and changed that. I think that they would listen to people and change. I don't know if that, I don't understand. I don't think that there's a marginal value to Apple to have the featured thing be over the rating thing. I think that's very marginal.
How long has an iTunes store been out there? And this is years now.
You'd think they'd have fixed that.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, Amazon does. Everybody else does sort by rating. That's how. In fact, that's the default.
Yeah.
That is odd. I never noticed.
There's a crowd that's happened to
Yeah.
it. Anyway, I think it's some of the news apps are really interesting.
You know,
Some
it
of
may
them
be
are
almost
too interesting to be useful.
It might be like.
Well, so I like Time is a very confusing model.
Yeah.
You know, I think what's Apple's
Because
done
they
is
sold one issue for
they've
$4.99.
removed all the barriers, and in some cases you need barriers. So everybody's navigation is different. There's no standard to the menu. Some people slide sideways to advance in an article. Some slide vertically. Some you twist a combination lock.
Did you see the Popular Science magazine? It's beautiful, right?
I did, but I couldn't read it.
You can't read it. Nobody has ever read an article. They go, oh, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
But it is, you cannot figure out how to use it.
Yeah, so sometimes boundaries can be good. Yeah.
Usability certainly an issue. What do you think, Veronica? What's your experience been?
Well, I haven't actually used it too much. Like I said, it's been kind of difficult for me to get my hands on it because Ryan's been hogging it the whole time. No fault of his own.
You said you had
how
some
it
negatives.
goes.
I guess the login's one.
Yeah, the login's one. It does feel a little bit heavy for me. I talked about this on Texilla a little bit, but to use it as an ebook reader, like on public transportation, when I have my Kindle, I can hold it one-handed for a pretty significant amount of time. The iPad, on the other hand, feels a lot more, it's heavily constructed
I hear people
in a
say
good
that.
way.
I hear people say that, but how
And they
heavy
call me
is
a
a
wimp 'cause I
hard?
say it's heavy.
How heavy is a hardbound book? If I read Cryptonomicon on the subway, it's more than 1.5 pounds.
You need a holster for that book.
Yeah, so I'm just saying. I
I'm
think
going to do it.
Muscles are
I'm going
way
to
too
touch
nobody
weight
ever
on a Kindle.
complains.
I gotta
Oh, this
pick one
book
up.
is too heavy to read on the subway, and yet I guess the Kindle has set up an expectation that things will be light enough to hold.
Brian Brushwood is about to do something.
I just lost
Wait a
my
minute.
iPad.
You
virginity.
haven't ever touched
I have
one?
never touched an iPad until this exact moment.
Do you have dramatic music to accompany this dramatic moment?
I have sad trombone. Is that dramatic enough?
That's
it
good
might
enough
be
for
kind of
me.
a sad moment for humanity.
This is Brian Brushwood's sad trombone. That's not quite it.
Actually, that is kind of how I feel, though, because it's like I wanted so bad for the iPad to be a slam dunk, have to buy it, the way the iPhone was, but instead it was just that middle ground and not having a camera and the 3G not being available and it being, because if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get the high-end one for $800. It's like I'm stuck in this, I got to wait for it mode, and I don't want to be there. I want to be like, screw it, I'm buying it right now. But I'm sure now that I've touched one, it's all going to be over.
It's actually
It feels really nice to use. Like I do like the intimacy of having it there on your lap and being able to, jump around and use the multi-touch. It's nice. I do enjoy it. I'm just not at the point now where I'm ready to buy one yet. Not quite there.
And I guess that's the other thing. It's like for me, getting one without 3G wouldn't be an option. Right. So it's like there's no way I'm getting one without 3G. But if I buy the one with 3G, not only am I going to be spending almost $800, but I'm also signing up for $30 more a month. That's a big enough hurdle where it's like I'm frustrated standing on the outside. I want to be in the party with you guys.
Here's an interesting thing on that 30 a month. It's not the unlimited 5 gigabytes that they're selling with the rest of the eVideo cards. It's truly AT&T says no, we won't. There is no limit on the.
Oh, really?
30. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they said they literally. The guy literally said,
That's
I can see why, because you can't use it with anything else.
Yeah.
It's like that's it. It's for the
Use
iPad
it as a hub. Right.
Yeah, you can't.
Mr. Little Jeans wants to say thank you for featuring him on TWiT last week as the iPad stand, kitty iPad stand.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, you had the iPad on your cat's butt.
Yeah, he had his 15 minutes of fame. He was very excited.
What's sad? It doesn't heat up, so it's really not even good for a butt warmer.
Maybe
It's good for a little back massage, I guess, if you're typing on it.
Yeah.
With a cat.
Oh, that's true. It rocks back and forth in the cat's back.
I mean, one of the fun things to think about, if you look back at the iPod when it came out, it wasn't that interesting. There was no iTunes store. You had to manually rip all your music, and people poo-pooed it as an unnecessary third luxury type device. And so what Apple does that's on the good side is they create markets.
Feel how heavy this first iPod is.
One?
That's the 5
Is this a computer museum?
It's 5 gigabytes. Feel how heavy that is.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm sure people said the same thing. Too expensive because
Yeah.
it was $4.99. It too heavy. not 5 gigs. Of course, at that time that was a lot of storage.
But what they'll do is over time they will release features that we think are obvious, and we'll be grateful for them, and we'll pay, and they'll eke every incremental dollar out of an extended roadmap, knowing today what the device should have.
You know what's really interesting is on this, day where Apple sold, they sold 450,000 of these in the first 3 days. I mean, there really is a lot of celebration. Mostly what you hear is negativity about Apple. It seems to me, except for the hardcore Apple fanboys, it seems to me Apple's reputation has slipped quite a bit.
I think it's the uncanny valley. The closer they get to being perfect, the more we notice their flaws. And
the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Well,
That's an interesting way of using that. All right.
that is very interesting.
Tell us what the uncanny valley is, Veronica. What does that mean?
Uncanny Valley is an idea that as robots or androids become more and more human-like, it becomes increasingly difficult for us to accept them because they're very, very close to appearing human, but because they're not human, we can sense that, and you actually kind of equate it to being like a corpse, or a zombie, like something
wrong, but you can't figure out
but
what.
Not quite human. Yeah.
It's Toy Story. It's Toy Story's
like
fine
Polar
when it's
Express.
toys, but as soon as it's a human, they go, "There's something wrong."
It's creepy.
Right.
Polar Express is a really good example of that's used in cinema. It's like the animation was just close enough that it was a little bit on the creepy side.
Right. Exactly.
By the way, I can literally feel the sickness soaking in through my fingers the more I touch this.
It's a tactile sort of.
And I know because you notice, like on launch day, everyone when they announced it, everyone who touched it says, "I'm getting one." Everyone who didn't touch it says, "I don't get it. What's the big deal?"
It's
and
the
I
touching.
knew this would be the
It's the
moment when
touching.
you
It's a
touch
special
it.
film that they apply. It's conductive glass,
opium lace.
The reality
carbon
distortion
fiber
film.
transmission.
No, I think it's the intimacy of it. And I think this is why, people keep saying, Leo, you're an Apple fanboy. Of course you love it. And why are you saying it's a game changer? To me, it's a game changer because it's so intimate.
Yeah.
You're touching it, you're holding it. And what you don't get from the pictures is how snappy it is and the experience. It's an experiential thing that's maybe hard to codify. I don't know, but I do feel it's intimate.
When you think about this as a collapsing of 50 to 100 game boards like Scrabble, like checkers, backgammon, chess.
Just think of it that way.
All that
in
one place. When you think of a group of people interacting with this together,
Right.
And
You know where
kind of the way what the Wii did for gaming, the iPad has the potential to do for all sorts of other types of interaction.
That is a very good and also a very dangerous analogy because what the Wii did was come on very strong, bringing in a novel play dynamic that involved touching and feeling and motion control, and ultimately fizzled because it brought nothing new technology-wise as far as the capability of it, and the novelty of the game wore off very quickly. I can't remember the last time I touched the Nintendo Wii.
Nice save.
It was so close.
It was so close.
I was waiting, wait for it.
It's absolutely true. I haven't played with that Nintendo console in a really long time.
I play with my Wii all the time.
Oh, he went there.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, but I'm really excited about the game center for the iPad.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to trying more games on it and really seeing what developers can do with the interface and having a Steam-like or Xbox Live-like PSN-like system for the iPad in 4.0 is going to be really cool.
Let's talk about 4.0 because that was the big story from Apple anyway. Apple seems to, watch very carefully because what you're seeing is a very masterful manipulation of the news cycle.
Yeah.
They had the iPad. Then this week, the iPhone 4.0. Next week, the new Apple laptops will come out.
No kidding.
They still make laptops?
For a little bit longer.
Those are they're like kickstands for your iPad.
I
right?
realized, though, that I actually was a little worried that Apple was turning its back on computers and going consumer. And then I realized,
Did I miss an announcement coming for next week?
It's a rumor, but it's a very, very strong rumor. I'll tell you where that comes from. But
I need a new MacBook Pro, whoa.
So do I. I've been waiting. Although I have to say, the iPad, I have not touched my MacBook. The iPad may subsume, but here's why Apple has to keep making them.
Yeah.
You cannot develop for the iPad on anything but a Macintosh.
Yep.
So if they want, in fact,
so it's only for the developers. Those are the only people who are going to buy the new Macs.
developers, video editors,
They're an investment.
that's who's going to be buying Macs.
Am I the only one who genuinely expected that that speech to text would be built into the keyboard in
Yes.
iPhone 4?
Yes, you are.
Man,
Well,
because
something that
once
makes
I saw it
Android
on the Droid,
2, it's what makes Android 2.1 so exciting is that it's everywhere. When you pop up a keyboard, you have the option to dictate. Now, you could put drag and dictate on your iPad, and it's very good. It's as good as, if not
But
better.
it's an extra step
But it's
every
an
time you
extra
do
step.
something.
Integrated
right?
copy of
But I
OS.
tell you, it's like once I saw that on the Droid, I was like, this will be
I use
awesome.
it all the
There's
time.
no way Apple will not think to put this in 4.0, darn it.
But we said that about cut and paste.
Yeah,
when it was
that's true.
invented 1,000
and
years ago.
multitasking.
So they're gonna wait till they get it perfect by their standards. So kind of put something like that in.
So Steve Jobs talked about his tentpole on at the announcement. 7 of them. You started it with the Wii thing, and now I can't stop.
let's just keep going.
So he said there are 7 tent poles. There's like a bunch of new features, but here are the ones that we want
And
you to
yay,
pay
did
attention
Steve
to.
Jobs descend from the throne to deliver the tent poles to the masses. Tent pole the first, thou shalt multitask.
Multitasking.
But only in a manner such so provided by Apple's SDK.
He says we wanted to do this for so long, but we couldn't. We'd waited till we did it right.
Now, isn't that kind of a little bit of the opposite of what he said originally? Like 2 years ago, it was just like, multitasking's dumb, right?
Yeah,
And everyone's
never
like,
listen.
yeah!
Never listen to what Steve Jobs
No,
says.
like,
Nobody
no one
ever
wants to watch
watch
a video.
Yeah,
on,
never.
right.
He'll change his mind when the time is right.
In fact, it's my opinion when Steve says no one will ever. That's when
That's
you
what he's
start.
planning to
That's
do.
when he's
That's when you
planning to
buy
do it.
Apple
Yeah.
stock.
Yeah, exactly.
I met a guy this week at a bar on Whiskey Friday, which is a great tradition that's sweeping the nation.
Which I have loved.
Good,
And thanks
good.
to McAllen for making that possible at South by
Absolutely,
Southwest.
and it happens in your
What
heart
fun
wherever
that
you are.
was. I love that.
So I met a guy. He said he worked for Apple marketing. I said, "Oh, so you're a tech journalist?"
Oh, snap.
Boom.
Yow, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, he smiled. But
You could do it the other way
the
too. When you read
manipulation
Walt
of the
Mossberg,
media.
next time you meet Walt Mossberg, say, "Oh, you're worked for Apple Marketing."
I've never met Walt.
Yeah,
It'd
no,
be nice.
he's a wonderful fellow.
I'm sorry,
Multitasking
4.0,
was
yeah.
tentpole number 1. Any thoughts about how they implemented it? Okay.
I actually was
So what,
literally.
for multitasking?
Yeah.
Well, it's still like jumping around to applications. The only thing that's improved really is that it remembers the state it was in.
You know, it's funny because I feel like the iPad, which lacks it right now, although we'll have it this fall, is all I really want, which is quickly go home and go to the next app. And it's fast enough that I feel like it's close to multitasking. The only thing you lack is you can't, and this is
Pandora.
what they, exactly, this is what they use as an
Or
example.
as I like to think of it, the TWiT effect. TWiT AM.
Yeah, well, and we figured out a way, by the way, you can continue to listen to TWiT AM
Nice.
in the background because it uses Apple's own QuickTime player, which is allowed to
Oh, no
multitask.
kidding.
I thought I had stumbled upon something.
You did.
'Cause I was listening to TWiT audio and I was like, I broke it.
No,
I'm
no.
like, I accidentally jailbroke my iPhone.
Credit to Craig, to Houdini 7, for
Great.
realizing that would work if you use QuickTime.
Yeah,
You'll be
yeah.
able to do it in the background.
So the
thought I was
multitasking is probably like the most important feature of the 4.0 software.
I have to cop to something.
What is it?
I don't.
I
think
said
it
last week, you will never see multitasking in an Apple device.
is. You sounded like Steve Jobs.
And the reason I said it is I don't want multitasking. In fact, I hope they have a way to switch it off. Because I tell you what, I've got multitasking in this Nexus 1.
Yeah.
At least twice now, a phone call has come in, and I haven't been able to pick it up because something else is busy.
Right.
Didn't you hear? Jobs said this time they did it right. That's because they're doing it wrong.
Oh, okay. Then I feel fine.
But I have a hypothetical question for you.
Yes, sir.
Theoretically,
Yes, sir.
Let's say somebody, obviously there's a lot of great features in 4.0. Hypothetically, if somebody had hacked their 3.0 software and never upgraded to 3.1 because they really needed the tethering that AT&T was supposed to offer months and months ago.
Purely hypothetical.
Hypothetically, is there much of a reason this person maybe should or should not go to 4.0?
I'd restore. I always do a restore when I have a jailbroken phone just to see what's new.
Well,
and
no, not jailbroken, because that was what hypothetically.
Oh, you
not
had
jailbroken.
unlocked.
Yeah, like
Unlocked.
3.0, you could do a I forget what it was, but some file altered, and then you had tethering available.
Oh, tethering.
Tethering.
That's jailbreak. Oh, that file.
Yes, yes.
Oh, you didn't jailbreak it. You just changed the. You added
this guy I know.
friend.
This guy I
His
know
friend.
did that.
No,
And
you
it's
could change
extremely
add a
valuable for
profile
him.
that would allow you to do tethering.
Right, correct.
Yeah. Well, by the way, AT&T said tethering would happen last year.
Are you accusing
Why are-
AT&T of not?
I am so shocked that you're all referring to the historical record. Why would you bring up old stuff? Like, that's so old. Let's look to the future, guys.
Future is now, according to Steve.
So
Yeah, don't look back on the old stuff. Exactly.
My take on the multitasking, I mean, it's some people saying it's technically not real multitasking. Based on the video demonstrations, the Pandora thing is super slick.
That's important.
But more important to me was the Skype demonstration.
Skype could ring in the
Exactly,
background.
it would
I
ring
agree.
so it would be a phone. not just an app that you had to have in the foreground when you wanted to use it. So when you're able to be reached without an active decision to do so, that's a true communications device. And so that was
that a bit of a
awesome.
warning shot to AT&T, you think? That seemed a little bit weird for a device that's primarily a phone for you to focus
Like, hey, look,
in
Skype
your...
can go through now and multitask.
Kind of shocking
and you
that
can use this
Steve
as your
would
phone
would
instead of AT&T
yeah.
service.
That Steve would say the S word
Yeah.
is a little shocking.
Symbian, you mean?
Yeah.
Skype works great on the iPhone as it is, so I'm really looking forward to having it as, a multitasker.
By the way, it
that
works on the
can get
iPad,
calls in
too.
when I'm walking around. What?
Oh,
It works on the
audio in
iPad, too.
Works on this?
No, you got a microphone on that thing.
Nice. Okay.
Can't do video chat, though, but I guess you can on the iPhone either.
I heard, but I haven't found. I heard there was an app that uses your iPod Touch or iPhone as the camera for your iPad. Can anybody verify this?
You told me like it was fact.
There's two.
I was all
No.
excited. You
There
said
are.
there
But
was
now
one.
we're broadcasting, and I have to be a responsible
You are
pseudo-journalist.
You are
Backpedaling.
correct, sir. There
Check in
are
the chat
two.
room.
There are in fact 2 apps in the iTunes store. But come on, wait a minute. Now think about this. Okay, now you have an iPhone and an iPad.
Right.
So you could do the Statue of Liberty thing.
You are taking a picture with your iPhone that
Yeah.
is feeding into your iPad via Bluetooth.
Right.
Why don't you just take the picture with the iPhone?
Yeah, it's getting too much. It's too much.
It's not necessary. What I would think is this iPad screen is much better for manipulation,
Right.
for viewing, for
There
editing,
are
and
quite
operating.
a few applications
So
that do that.
I'd like to take a batch of photos with the handheld device,
Right.
but then instantly move them to the tablet.
It's more than
device.
instantly. It's at the same time. It's live.
Oh, it's like those Wi-Fi SD cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they sell a camera card reader for the iPad, so you could
Oh, the
use a
dongle?
good. Yeah, you
I'm
could
not
use.
gonna dongleize this.
You don't want a dongle?
It debeautifies it.
No. You just take a picture, take a bunch of pictures on your SD card, pop the SD card, and it can copy it to
I
the
don't
iPad.
use SD
I don't.
cards.
I'll be honest. I really don't see the iPad as a content creation device so much. I think there's limited content creation. To me, it's TV 2.0.
I could see that. Or TV accompaniment. It's something you throw on your lap while you're watching Lost to look up.
But I can watch Netflix on it. I can watch ABC has a great application, lets you watch TV live on it. Not live, but streaming. I can watch movies and television shows downloaded from iTunes. And there's a great IMDb application, by the way, that I can run.
Does the Netflix look good streaming on this?
Netflix is awesome.
Oh, I knew it would.
So it's a personal TV. Now you may say, well, wait a minute, I have a 50-inch TV I just bought. But if you hold your iPad,
That's what I do. I
can't
snuggle in
like
bed
this.
with my
it's
50-inch
pretty
TV.
close to your 50-inch TV. I'll be honest with you.
You're gonna have a head-mounted.
Typing is still pretty dismal for me, though. That's one thing that I don't like when sitting and watching TV and having it in front of you. It's just not comfortable to type on.
Yeah, I agree. I don't
Just
think,
now, I've only been able to do hunt and peck. There's no way to.
That's my
touch
point
type.
again. Is that although I think it's a pretty good email app. I'm going to actually do an experiment with my wife, who's using a 13-inch MacBook, and give her an iPad because it's more complex than she needs, and an iPad I think is fine for what she does, which is email, occasional surfing. I think it's going to be fine for a lot of people. I'm giving my 80-year-old father-in-law the same thing. I think if for limited content creation, fine. For quick emails, fine. But mostly it's a consumption device. But that's just my opinion.
On the creation side, one of the people I was hanging out with, Rana Sobhani, she makes a lot of electronic music, and she's doing like iPad symphonies and DJ remixes, and it seems like this device is great for music content.
See, I might have been
creation.
wrong. Yeah,
because you have it's
Jammer
not as
B.
complicated. You have sliders, you have
Yeah.
dials, you
Yeah,
have
that's really
keys.
cool.
So
Touch-
I'm looking forward to seeing what musicians do with
Touch
this.
is a significant interface
Yeah.
advancement.
Yeah.
And multi-touch on the iPhone, we all got it and said, that's cool. But when you put it on a 24 by 768 screen, there is a lot to be said for touch.
Yeah.
I think if it's done right, it's pretty powerful.
And if we
and
could
I
go
still
back
think
to
as
the-
a... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if we can go back to the Wii analogy, I mean, Wii was a new development in the way you interacted with your games, and now we're seeing, the Microsoft
Wii
Natal
was.
and the PS3 stuff.
Yep.
It's like, that's great. Let's herald the
inspires
game changer
development,
for what it is.
And I think in terms of a image manipulation device, I think people see it as a tablet, and a lot of people associate tablets with being able to do, photo editing and manipulation in a creative way. And I think even though you can't use a stylus and you're not going to be using it like a Wacom tablet, you can still, have brush strokes, and I think that's going to evolve in a big way as well in the future.
Cool.
All right, I'm going to cut this short because I know people are sick to death of the iPad. I think there's plenty to say. I think it's important, but I'm going to honor
it moving.
your nausea. And we'll take a break, come back. There are a couple of big stories, including a big hit in net neutrality. I think we probably should talk about the fact that Apple has in iPhone 4.0, the most significant thing wasn't one of the tent poles, but was that you cannot use anything but Apple software to develop for this platform. I think that's very
A lot of upset
important.
developers.
Is that anti-competitive? Is that what you're hinting at?
We'll talk about it.
That's all right. Antisocial. That's what it is.
You know, it's funny because Steve Jobs actually weighed in on this and referred to a blogger and said he's got it right. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But before we do that, I do want to mention my friends at Citrix who do the great Go to My PC program. You know, it's interesting. I think one of the most interesting uses of the iPad, maybe not the most useful, but kind of interesting, is to use it as a virtual machine to access other computers. They have Gotomeeting, for instance, for the iPad, so you can join a meeting on the iPad. Not yet with GoToMyPC, but I have to think that's coming soon.
Oh, any minute.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Big screen.
GoToMyPC allows you to access your computer from anywhere, Mac or PC. It's very easy to install. In fact, you might as well, I got a 30-day free trial for you. You might as well just try it on the computer you're sitting at, Windows or Mac, not your iPad. Go to gotomypc.com/twit. Once you're going to do it, aren't you? Baratunde's trying it. Go to gotomypc.com/twit and install it for 30 days free. Now, here's the thing. In a couple of minutes, you'll be able to access that computer anywhere you go. As long as you can get online, you can run any program, access email, send and receive, access network resources, copy files from one to the other. It's kind of the ultimate convenience tool, especially for people who travel. Put it on your office computer, you can go home early. Put it on your home computer, you'll never be without that key file. Absolutely free, completely secure. There's never been a exploit with GoToMyPC, which is something you cannot say for any other remote access product. 128-bit SSL encryption, point-to-point. GoToMyPC.com/twit. You know, I use this as a VPN as well, by the way. If you are in a kind of sketch internet cafe, and that's why I want to see this on the iPad, you fire up GoToMyPC, and now you're surfing. I have it on this computer. I'm surfing from my computer here instead of from the internet cafe, and it's completely encrypted up to this point, which means no one can see what I'm doing.
Does it make me a bad person that I use it to go from one room of my house to another room of my house because I don't want to walk around the corner?
Yes.
It makes me a little bit lazy.
On behalf of all people not named Brian Brushwood, yes. That makes you a horrible
bizarre.
human. You, sir, are a horrible
It's all the way downstairs.
No, that's a you know what? That's a great use for it.
This is why they hate us.
No, that's a great use for it. Go to mypc.com/twit. Give it a try today. You're going to love it. So the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, ruling on the Comcast case. Just to give you a recap, Comcast was using a technology called Sandvine to monitor customers' interactions. This was a couple of years ago. And when they saw that they were on BitTorrent, they would send a bogus BitTorrent packet that said, disconnect, I'm done. Disconnecting them from BitTorrent, interfering with
on behalf of
the
user, spoofing them, basically.
To do you a favor, I'm just going to disconnect that torrent. You didn't really want that file, did you? FCC gave him a big fine, slapped him on the wrist, said, you can't do that. That violates net neutrality. Of course, Comcast appealed. Now, interestingly, they've discontinued use of these Sandvine boxes, but they still don't like the idea that the FCC might tell them what to do, and it was a fairly hefty fine. The District of Columbia Court of Appeals gave them a win, gave Comcast a win. It ruled that Comcast could, in fact, regulate high-speed internet traffic over its own system, and that a company that wanted to push its content through Comcast pipelines could not. But even more significantly, it said that the FCC has no standing to regulate. FCC acts, and I remember talking back when Michael Powell was the chairman of the FCC about this. FCC can only do what Congress says it can do. So Congress says you can regulate broadcast TV, FCC can do it. Congress never said they could regulate the internet. And that was Comcast's case, basically.
I think it's really interesting to see the way people interpret the story and tell it. For example, the way you said that this is the story here is that it's a blow for net neutrality, but the story as I see it is the FCC doesn't get to run the internet.
Well, and that's it's interesting because I went to an EFF event, and John Perry Barlow's talking, who's on the board of the EFF, and he said, even on the board of the EFF, we can't decide which is worse. Should government intervention on the internet or big phone companies deciding what content could be pushed? It's bad both ways.
Right. Well, and I tell you, it's like I'd rather have look, net neutrality is something we all want, and it's like bureaucracies are built to grow, right? They look for a finger hole to get into. And the question up until now is, well, why should the FCC regulate the internet? You know, we're all just handling things on our own. And the FCC found something that we all want that we don't have the power to instantly do on our own. And they're like, and it's, to me, it's the poison pill. It's like, oh, you want net neutrality? We could do that for you.
You really don't want the government regulating the internet, but I got to point this out. You wouldn't, and this is what Comcast basically says. Hey, there's free market. If you don't like it, that we are limiting what you can do with your internet, you are free to go somewhere else. And the problem is there isn't a free market.
Yeah.
And by the way,
it's certainly getting. I mean, you're right.
it's partly due to the FCC, by the way.
Exactly, but it's not. It's certainly not an efficient free market. But 10 years ago, I had maybe one or two choices: dial-up or Roadrunner, and that was it. But now in my neighborhood, I have two choices for fiber optic. We've got Clear, the 4G network. We've got the old Hughes satellite connection. There's my friend has some kind of other wonky radio-based service. It's like we're not where we need to be. We're not where we want to be, but the markets are only going to get more efficient, and if we can possibly hold off on having
let me give you an example.
Bureaucracy.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example. You tell me what you do about this. I agree with you. I think maybe the free market will make this moot. Comcast is buying NBC.
Oh, man.
You want to watch 30 Rock. It just so happens that if you would watch 30 Rock on the Comcast network, it would look really good because we're going to give you priority access. But if you would try to watch it on some other form of access, it would not be as good.
I mean, I think that's clearly an anti-competitive practice then, right? We have
so then you think that
to do
the
that.
Existing laws would be sufficient?
Yeah, I would certainly hope so. Look, the internet is the greatest thing to happen in my entire lifetime. And part of what makes it great is it's this bizarre experiment in almost complete anarchy. And we watch these self-generating structures occur, and that's part of what we love. We love this random wisdom of the crowds. And if there's anything we could do to keep any kind of regulatory force from getting its hooks into it, hold off as long as we can.
Baratunde, you're a socialist. What do you think?
I know. By the way, I was dreading this because
can you
I love Baratunde,
please make my lower third say socialist? Please.
Absolutely.
Because I'll just feel like I'm lying if you don't do that. Yeah. I share the concern of the tension between letting the quote-unquote free market, and those are massive quotation marks, because if you look at the studies of overall internet availability across the country, certain areas of the country have a lot of competition, but vast swaths of it do not. Rural America has no option. Lots of poor inner city America has no option. And in fact, what you see happening is a very strange collaboration between certain civil rights organizations and telecom companies. And the telecom companies are saying, look, if you are pro net neutrality on the kind of production and content distribution side, well, we may just not find it in our interest to build out to your part of America.
It's redlining.
Yeah, it's a digital redlining that's happening. It's a digital blackmailing that's happening. And you have some of these historic organizations which are to prevent discrimination sort of being pulled in this odd direction of access versus content production. It's
a deal with the devil, because I want to get access, so I'm going to do a deal with AT&T, even if they're not good in the long run.
And I think the mild socialist in me, because the internet has an ideal behind it, and if we're going to try to push towards something good and beautiful, then we'd want to look at how media and communications have been organized. And they're owned by a few. You have 7% minority ownership of TV stations, 3% minority ownership of radio stations. By the way, that's
only because the FCC mandated that.
Right. And so you look at something like the internet and media production and communication across it, and you say, we can build a better world on this platform. Let us not repeat those mistakes of the past that concentrate power into so few hands.
That's the argument.
And let's try to keep the lanes clear without gumming up the works too much. Well, so I definitely hear you, Shuid.
You qualified
but I have to qualify because I'm as honest as I can try to be.
Right now, we have no regulation by FCC at all. In 2003, 15% of Americans had access to broadband. Now in 2010, we have 95% of Americans have access to broadband. And this happened without any kind of regulation from the FCC. It happened on its own by market forces. And there is redlining where it's like, it's hard to run fiber optic out into the middle of the sticks. But that's why some of these WiMAX things are working out. That's why the Hughes direct PC stuff, the satellite based.
Well, first of all, that's crappy. You don't want
it. It is crap, but
do you feel like the government broadband plan, which the FCC announced, by the way, the chief feature of which is to get internet into these rural areas that it's not economically viable for big companies to do. Do you think that's a bad idea? You think government should not be in that business?
It is a very delicious plate of goodies that I really want, and I'm very tempted. However, I'm not willing to pay the price to get my hand into that bag.
I want to do a spin-off show with you just on this. Because when you look at the utility of broadband and the internet, whether it's healthcare delivery, coupons, job applications, education. They are blending from this. They're no longer a luxury item. If you want to exist in a reasonable capacity in this modern society, you need broadband to get it done. Or else you suffer a severe
Veronica,
competitive
be a
disadvantage.
voice of reason here.
I just
So the delay.
am getting caught up on the conversation because my call dropped.
I know.
Thing,
It dropped you out. But basically, we're talking about the ruling that came out of Washington, D.C. this week, the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, which said that Comcast did not have to do what the FCC said, that they were not liable when they blocked BitTorrent traffic, that Comcast should be allowed to monitor and modify.
Again, this is the way, like the way I hear it is they say, no, this is not your jurisdiction, FCC.
They did. That's right.
Right, which is different from saying, they didn't say we think it's okay that they were spoofing individual people. Because look, there's civil action there. If your company impersonates you and speaks on your behalf, I would say there's a civil lawsuit that could be brewing. It could be handled entirely by the private. Oh, you're looking at me all.
Because, dude, I'm not totally disagreeing with you. I'm trying to imagine another scenario where, what happened. You described a 10-year lag in broadband adoption to certain communities, and it's not just an inconvenience of not being able to use your iPad. It's the difference between getting the same quality healthcare options or the same market information.
Don't you think, Brian?
And I think that costs communities a lot.
But at what cost to innovation?
Go ahead, Veronica.
Oh, that's it. I just think that I think that the FCC should regulate the internet at some point. I think it sets a scary standard in terms of net neutrality.
I know exactly what Brian says, though. There's no such thing as a little regulation.
Yeah.
You see, because I know how you people think.
But there's also no such thing. But there's also no such thing as a free market.
Oh, God.
There really isn't.
Now
I mean,
we're
these
going
guys
way down
spend
there.
billions lobbying.
There may be such a thing as a free market, but the free market does not solve all problems. In fact, the free market has some real issues.
But it's also
and there's an
ideal
issue
that
where
doesn't exist.
the free market doesn't work is where there isn't true competition. And I think that it's pretty safe to say that while you're lucky, Brian, you have many, many choices in Austin for good reasons.
All of America should live in your house.
Argument. Sit in your ivory tower.
But there are a lot of places, and you can blame the FCC for this, where there's a duopoly, where there are two incumbents. There's a cable company and the phone company. They both have copper. They both have no incentive to improve their copper physical plant because they've invested a lot of money in it. They're still amortizing the cost, so they're not going fiber. This is why Google's doing the fiber for communities thing. And I think that the FCC, look, there's regulation in this world. You think there should be no regulation?
Oh, no, don't you? I'm not stepping to that trap, sir.
So there is a place where sometimes regulation is appropriate.
Well, yeah, but why not? Why not? For example, there's a couple of great success stories in self-policing, self-regulation. I, for one, am glad that there's no law regulating how movies are set from PG to R.
I agree with you.
I'm glad among,
I
for
agree
all
with
our
you.
feelings about the MPAA, they do it right, and everybody
I don't know if they
voluntarily.
do it right, but it's volunteer, and that's the point.
Exactly, right? Second of all, Underwriters Laboratories are the people that examine electronics.
Right.
Now, you cannot get an item into Walmart stores that's an electronic that's
Let me tell
not
you something,
UL.
though. If the FCC didn't have FCC B-class certification, nothing in this room would work, because there would be 800 devices that generated enough RF to block every other
And
device.
if you want to keep going back to the Carter phone decision, you wouldn't be allowed to attach any device to the network.
That's right. We'd have to be using hard rubber Western Electric phones still.
That was a government-protected monopoly. That's the
Well, that's
whole
right.
point. That's only
That's
when they
right.
open it up to the free market that you could get all this massive innovation.
Nicely done, sir.
All right. Poor Veronica is sitting out on the Skype land.
I just wish I had been in the beginning of the conversation, because then I could actually get a feel
so
for how
glad
you
we're all
guys got
still
to where you
friends.
are right now.
No, it's a fact. Look, you know what? I don't think there is a right answer to this. It's a very important conversation. And as I said at the beginning, even the board of the Electronic Frontier Foundation couldn't agree on this. They don't like the idea of a government regulating the internet any more than we do. But it does seem to me that you cannot trust Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast to tell us what the internet should be.
Yeah,
But you can
or
trust
where it should be deployed.
You could trust an angry mob of the internet. I mean, it's like stuff happens sometimes. Maybe we can fix this and it's not an issue, please.
Well, I agree. And, it may be that the good news is there'll be enough third-party carriers like Clearwire and stuff that we don't have this issue.
If we keep
Or
the competition in
certainly
the
there could be-
over-the-air spectrum.
Certainly, there could be enough of a campaign where the very idea of violating this principle of net neutrality is a liability
Right.
to your
People know it.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
know
It's
it.
like you don't
like a
exactly.
nuclear deterrent to
Exactly.
this.
Mutually assured destruction. Actually, this is very interesting because this relates very closely to this other big hot topic right now. And there was a great article in the New York Times yesterday about Apple and the gospel of the web. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. You know, the gospel of the web is that open systems, open standards are generative. They create innovation by the nature of being open. And I think there's a very interesting point to be made that maybe you should rethink this gospel of the web. This is an article in the New York Times by Stephen Johnson. I'll give you the link in a second. We can talk about it. You guys could prepare while I tell you about backing up. You know, one reason you do want to have high-speed internet is because the best kind of backup is an off-site backup. Are you giving high fives to each other?
Yeah, we're very proud. I thought that was a good discussion.
That was like a reasonable
It was a great conversation. Nobody got killed. Nobody was hurt. Awesome. Well done, gentlemen.
I didn't have to hear most of it.
All right, Veronica. I've never actually met you in person, but we have to.
Veronica, I don't want to say
you
who's your internet access provider.
Comcast.
Okay, I didn't want to say anything, but I noticed that your Skype dropped out right when we started talking about that. I wasn't
They
gonna.
heard me coming. They were like, trying to cut her off.
They, you know, for all I know, the stream stopped too, and all the people watching can't see it. Backup is important, and off-site backup is paramount. You know, I talk a little bit about my friend Peter Krogh, the guy who wrote the digital asset management book, the DAM book. He is done a lot of thinking about backup as a photographer. Very important to keep your digital assets covered. And he came up with the idea of a 3-2-1 backup system. I think this is really good. If you can get this in your head, backup will never be a mystery again, and you will never lose a file again. 3 means 3 copies of everything. Your original copy on your computer, and then 2 additional copies. The 2 is those 2 copies should be on different media. Don't burn everything to 2 copies of DVDs, because if the DVD oxidates and you don't have a DVD player, you're done. 2 different formats. The one is one of these 3 copies should be off-site. 3 copies, 2 different media, 1 off-site. This is why I recommend Carbonite. Carbonite, as soon as you install it, in fact, you go right now to carbonite.com, use the offer code TWiT, you get 15 days free. No, you don't need a credit card or anything. Immediately, it starts backing up the personal files on your computer. This is really good for a laptop. People lose laptops like crazy. Put this Carbonite on your laptop. Every time you're connected to the internet, it starts uploading your stuff. Now, the first upload will take a little while, especially if you've got gigabytes. But once you've got that main backup done, very quick to just keep those changes updated, and you've always got a good copy. And a good copy that's not sitting next to your computer where fire, flood, or earthquake can destroy it or burglars can steal it. A good copy that's encrypted and stored safely in the cloud. Now, here's a couple of other good reasons to use Carbonite. Automatic, off-site, encrypted, less than $5 a month for every personal file on your computer. This doesn't cover external drives or network drives, just the internal files. But that could be hundreds of gigabytes. I use it to back up the podcasts. It literally is hundreds of gigabytes.
Let me tell you, and the longer you go without doing a Carbonite thing, it's like the more, it's just a matter of time. You're going to have that crash. And more importantly, the farther back your digital memories go.
Right.
Like, back to when your kids are born.
Oh, you don't want to lose that stuff. You do not want to lose that stuff.
And that's even what, like, at least if you had a fire, they write you a big fat check at the end of it. Your computer crashes, like, bummer
It's dead.
for you.
You're dead.
Oh, well, too bad.
Back it up with Carbonite. Carbonite.com, offer code TWiT, 2 free weeks. And then if you decide to buy it, and I do want you to do the trial because you want to make sure your internet's sufficient. You just want to use it first. Mac or PC, by the way. After you've tried it, you can get 2 months free when you sign up as long as you use the offer code TWiT. Carbonite.com. You got to back it up to get it back. It's that simple. So I really thought this was and it's the same, in a way it's the same conversation. It doesn't have to do with government regulation, but it's the nature of open. In the article in the Times yesterday, Stephen Johnson quotes Harvard's Jonathan Zittrain, who talks about
Author of The Future of the Internet and How to Stop It.
Yeah. You've read it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really neat, interesting guy. He talks about the generative power of the net. He says, when you don't have to ask permission to create and share new ideas, when small, innovative startups can compete with giant multinationals, I think of us as a good copy of that. I'm competing with Rupert Murdoch. Even though he's got all this power, thanks to the internet, inexpensive consumer electronics, I can create television that anybody in the world can see. So that's the generative power of an open, a free internet, the kind of thing that we want to protect, whether it's through government regulation, which I know some people don't like the idea of, maybe through free markets, but we need to protect it. You'd agree with that, right, Brian?
Yeah, I just love the fact that you guys both look at each other, which some people don't like.
Some people who shall remain nameless, Brian Brushwood, libertarian. You would categorize yourself as a libertarian.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why it's so fun to talk to you.
I know.
That's great. That's just great. I'm saying that seriously.
You know what a libertarian is?
Yeah.
It's just a Republican in
no, that's
in
definitely
sheep's
not true.
clothing.
That's definitely not
No?
true. It's
Don't
definitely
think
not
so?
true.
I
They're-
like to think we're just a fan of freedom on all sides.
Yeah, they appeal to a lot of progressive people on like torture and
You know what a socialist
rights,
is.
but also me,
A Frenchman.
a Frenchman. Sorry, go ahead. You were setting up this story. and I'm
No, I
babbling
forgot
over
now
time.
where I was going. Oh, the generative
The
power of the
generative
web, the open
Stephen
web.
Johnson article.
Okay, so then if you believe that, then you look at Steve Jobs and Apple and you say, well, this is the opposite, isn't it? It's a walled garden. It's AOL. It's MSN. It's CompuServe all over again, where we control everything rigidly, and you didn't see any innovative stuff happening on those platforms because you couldn't. It was their way or the highway.
Right.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Steve Jobs has created this app store. I think maybe against the will of Apple. It certainly wasn't their original plan. You know, when the iPhone came out, they said, oh, you don't need apps. You got web apps. It's great. You should be happy. That didn't work. So they created the
He's
app
actually
store.
said, we will never, ...
Probably did. We'll never have apps. I'm sure he had some reason why apps were a bad thing, right?
And why you would never want them.
You wouldn't want an app. So people demanded an app. Year 2, they made App Store. Year 3, they've got 175,000 applications. 185. You can. There's no one who could say that it hasn't been innovative, that it hasn't been generative. What the hell? How did this happen? And that's what Johnson's writing about in the Times. He says, rethinking a gospel of the web. This has been gospel. Is it wrong?
It's a spectrum.
Nothing's black and white.
It certainly is, and that's sometimes a cop-out in an argument, but I think in this
I
case,
think you're right.
It is true because Apple has opened the doors wide enough to let a lot of non-Apple innovation in while still retaining control enough to maintain a user experience that meets their standard. So not everybody agrees on that intersection. There are people who want apps and capabilities, tethering, routers, VoIP in the background, true multitasking, that doesn't meet Apple's standard. And so they draw a line that is closer to home than what some innovators want. So not every type of innovation can happen. What Apple has decided is, well, we can't do it all ourselves. I mean, there's a benefit to the platform owners in opening up because they can't solve every problem. They can't write every code. And so they've drawn a compromising line which satisfies the vast majority of their audience. And the more purists, the more geek-oriented are less happy because they'd love to do a lot more. They see potential where others might not. And so you get this frustration at that margin. But overall, Apple's been relatively open. And I'm someone who's pushed for a lot more from them. Right. But I also recognize that a lot of what Stephen's written is true.
So now let me. Anybody want to say anything before I throw the monkey
I was
wrench?
say this really makes me think of the Ed Felton blog where he said iPad is the Disneyland of computers.
Disneyland.
Yeah,
it's a sanitized experience.
Yeah. Right, which is very it's everything you wish, like just like the middle of downtown Disneyland is the little quaint American town. It's the exact picture
This
of
is how it used to be in America when
Exactly.
everybody ate candied apples.
When no
Nothing's
apps
dirty.
crashed.
No apps
right?
crashed.
There was no blue screen of death.
Yeah.
It's an interesting combination because you have this walled garden where you can create applications and they work really well, and Apple has this set of standards that you develop by. And on the same token, if you don't like that, you can go to a more open operating system like Android or Palm OS, and then you can, have that experience. And it's like, do you either want to make applications that you can sell millions of copies on in the Apple Store, or do you want to develop something that's more open and, cross-platform on Android or Palm?
It's true, though. Let's point it out that there is a very good web browser on the iPad and the iPhone, and it's Safari, and you can even run web apps that I can design and anybody can design. But now here's the monkey wrench. Because in iPhone 4.0 agreement, Apple did something that I think the tent poles are meaningless compared to this. They said, going forward, you may not develop applications for this platform, iPhone, iPod Touch, or iPad, with anything but Apple-approved tools.
And I thought they just said, screw you, Adobe.
Yeah, well, it was clearly screw you, Adobe.
Was I wrong in reading it that way?
So,
how can they? I guess they could tell because the code generated clearly indicates what.
Oh yeah, they know
software was used to put
it's
it
not
together.
quite as sloppy as front page making websites, but that's rude.
And this only works. Microsoft could have done the same thing with Windows, except that anybody could sell applications. It was an open platform. Right. You cannot sell applications unless Apple says yes, right? So this only works because Apple gets to say what applications run.
By the way, this is a really interesting face-off because on the one hand, Apple has first mover advantage. It has all the momentum. It currently has most of the software, but it seems like in the long term, I mean, I believe Apple was pretty far ahead in the PC days early on until Microsoft was completely open to everyone.
Right.
And I wonder, it'll be really interesting to see if the Android completely open architecture allows for catch-up. I don't know.
I think an Android tablet could be pretty good.
I think it could be good, but I think Apple's learned from the past. They're not repeating the same mistake. First of all, they're integrated a lot more, and the big step is commerce. What Veronica was talking about with, you can go to Android or Palm OS, but you can't get as large a pool of money, at your footsteps as a developer, as a content producer or seller, than you can get in the iTunes App Store. They've made the friction between you and getting that app and money in between really slick. Super smooth, super fast. So if you want to, you can make
if you're
a web
developer,
app.
it's pretty good.
Monetizing that web app is a lot harder on an iPhone than selling it in the App Store would be, because there's no payment.
And plus, as Gruber said, it's really dangerous for Apple to rely on something like Flash when, if anything happens to Flash and it breaks and suddenly all these iPhone apps no longer work, or iPad apps, then that's going to be a bad experience for the users.
I got a feel for John, because Steve Jobs, actually, when a developer sent him an email saying, "I hate this," Jobs said, "Well, read John Gruber's blog post, because we think he's got it right."
Yeah.
And I've got to think that John's he's cringing, right? Oh, damn.
Looks like he's Steve's man.
Oh, damn. And although it's a great honor. But Gruber said some interesting things. Gruber did, in that same blog post, point out that it's a lock-in for Apple, that Apple is, it's good for business. He says it's mostly good for users. And this is the question. Is a move like this for Apple's benefit or our benefit?
I think
it's for the benefit of the Objective-C developer whose price just went up. Because what you've done is made development more expensive.
So you're saying developers should like it?
I'm not saying developers as a group should like it, but what I am saying is that they've forced the segmentation in the developer market.
It does mean if you're a company developing mobile software, that you can't develop on one code that runs on all platforms.
So they're sort of decommoditizing development tools.
That's a good way to put it.
Great. Well, it seems like a lot of cross-platform applications, tend not to be as fully featured and
again,
nice to use
John
as
Gruber's
ones that are
point.
Developed strictly for the iPhone or iPad operating system.
He points to the Kindle app on the Mac and says I think a turd was the word he used.
Did use turd?
He used that word, yes.
I don't think it's that bad, but I can see where he's coming from for other things.
Yeah.
I mean, is the case where the output with using those tools was so unbelievably bad
I don't think
that they just needed to protect the consumer? I mean, this is clearly we're going to make it a little bit difficult for you.
Well, how many consumers are even going to notice?
Nobody
unless
knows.
something is breaking, they're not going to care whether it's something that's been developed, as a cross-platform application, or if it's something that was developed solely for the iPhone. I mean, maybe the geeks will notice if they can't run an application between Android and
Gruber
iPhone
notices that the
4.5.
kerning isn't perfect on an application. He's not the typical user.
He is the 1 percentile.
Yeah.
As are we probably in that regard, too.
So is what Apple's doing anti-competitive?
It's certainly rude.
It's rude. Bad news.
It's ill-mannered.
Flash to
why is it
Apple, you hurt our
anti-competitive?
feelings.
Because it's saying essentially, Adobe, screw you. Because Adobe's been working on it, but not just Adobe. There are other projects as well to work on cross-platform development products that will include Flash on the iPhone. That will allow Adobe to get back onto the iPhone, and Apple's basically slamming the door on them.
Like days ahead of that.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting, I've gotten to a heated but respectful email argument with someone. I was complaining about how
Everything's fine here, officer. We're all
Not me.
fine.
Don't look at me.
If you see a sudden sizzling coming out of the TriCast,
apparently Steve Jobs is
Apparently,
upset.
Baratunde said the wrong thing.
I had a code word, and the house
here
collapsed.
comes Colleen, because as soon as she hears liquid pour into the TriCaster, she gets
goodness.
upset. That's all
It
right.
seems
It's
like
not-
a well-rehearsed
it's not dripping
maneuver
in.
she just did.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, yes, Audiobook.com. No. No, go ahead. What were you saying, Baratunde?
He's like, I don't know.
She's worried about the broken glass next to my ball.
Oh,
pops.
like that would ever pop.
All right, get
and
the
you'd fall right
recorders
down
going,
or
because we don't want to miss that opportunity. Oh, and also, it made you black and white.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
That's
I
dramatic.
had to look and see if that was me or
now you're back.
Baratunde. I think.
He was actually you were
Where's that
shades of
trombone,
gray.
that sad trombone again?
Sad
That's right.
trombone. Bring it back. I'm sorry, we completely got off
No,
track.
that's all right.
here.
I'll have to go back to the chat room to pick up my train of
Chat room will
thought.
get us back on track
Where
instantly.
was I?
They say we were talking about porn.
Seems like we're always talking about porn, according to the chat room. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway.
here's where I was going. Walmart. Not just anyone can sell into Walmart.
Right.
right? It's a private enterprise, and
That's
it's
right.
huge, and millions of people go there.
Should be.
Apple, technically reserves that.
Right on cue. Well done.
Every time I load that page, it takes like 10 seconds to play the damn thing.
And he's on to some really cogent point, and then you give him that.
I was really gearing up. Like I was starting to feel it. The ideas were flowing. It was almost poetic. And then farty trombone sound.
Farty trombone.
But we look at the old bricks and mortar world. We say, okay, the internet doesn't have to be that way, and so people want a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so there's this aspiration for something, and Apple satisfies a big chunk of it. I'm kind of repeating myself. What do you think, Veronica?
Veronica, you help us here because you didn't get wine spilled all over you.
I've been running my mouth
No,
too
I didn't,
long.
unfortunately. Maybe that's a good reason I didn't have
We should get some
cocktails
whiskey
or
out
a
for
glass
you.
of wine over here.
Yeah.
What was the question? I'm sorry. I was reading the chat room.
This openness, John, Apple versus Flash. Is this really still happening?
Such great track,
Is
man.
this really still happening?
Were totally.
It's
we
like
were barreling
Groundhog
down
Day.
The highway.
It's like
I'm not
Groundhog
a huge
Day.
Flash
And then
fan,
the wine
so Flash
incident
not working
happened.
on
I
the
don't
iPhone and on the
care.
iPad
Yeah,
is a big
forget
deal
it.
for
Who
me. Really, I
cares?
think
Well, hold on,
HTML5 and other
HTML5.
solutions
Thank you. That's the
are
future.
the way of the future.
Thank you.
So I don't know. Oh, now they're calling me anti-developer in the chat.
Well, no, I mean,
Fabulous.
No,
this is
you're
where
actually developer kryptonite, I think is what they're saying.
this is where they're inspiring and bullying at the same time.
Yeah, it's
They
very
moved
interesting, isn't
the
it?
market. They
But let me
create a
get
device that there's only 450,000 of these, and every website that makes video is changing the way it delivers that video on the hopes that it will work
Right.
on this small market device right now.
It's not that
that's
small
amazing.
market. You got
Right
85
now.
million iPod touches and iPhones.
Yeah.
It's not that small a market.
But
But it's interesting. If I'm Adobe, I'm feeling a little put upon
this
because
is-
Apple's clearly targeting Adobe as well as Google.
This is personal.
Oh yeah, scrubbing. They pulled some 1984 stuff when they took the word Google
Doesn't say Google
out
anymore.
of the because you type it in, it's like
Go
Google
open
that.
Safari, Baratunde on the iPad, and instead of saying Google, it used to say Google when you entered a search term, and
says
now
Google.
says search.
Mine says Google.
Oh, mine still says Google
that makes
here.
sense though, because
What?
I mean, you can get Yahoo or Google.
But I think it was
in
the
that
button.
search.
Aren't they the same word?
No, when you type. Okay, it was on the keyboard. So
Oh.
tap that,
Yeah.
and it says here now it says search instead of Google.
Instead
but
of Google.
they're in my vocab and the vocab of millions
It
of
is
web users.
search.
They are the same word.
And the reason they did that,
Probably fine.
Apple's so clever because they always can say, oh, no, what we meant was, the reason they did that is they now have a setting in the settings to say, what do you want to use for your search engine? Well, we can't say Google. We should say search. And then whatever you're using, that's what search is to you.
Oh, you clever Lapples.
That's
Yeah,
so
it's kind of a
clever.
non-issue.
Yeah, all right.
Really.
I'm sorry I
Who
brought it up.
cares?
in terms of 4.0, the one other thing that I thought was huge, and I was listening to this other cool show on digital media, and iAds.
Yeah.
The idea that Apple is
Okay.
maybe going to try to do for ads.
Let me run this by you.
What they
Let me just
do
run Steve's
for
numbers
music.
by you, okay? So this all started because there was a third-party company called AdMobs that started putting ads on iPhone applications. Apple said, hey, we ought to get a little piece of that. So they tried to buy them. They had 30 days to negotiate. They let it run out unaccountably, and Google said, the 30 days are up. And they bought them for $600 million. Apple said, oh, shoot. So they went out and bought something called Quattro. Nobody had ever heard of. Same idea. And they've now announced iAds. Google's got AdMob. Apple's got iAds. So here's Steve Jobs. Comes up on stage. Now, remember, he's talking to developers, not to us.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it from our excitement over the talk, though.
Well, let me tell you what he said, and you tell me what you think. He said, we know that there are 85 million iPod touches and iPhones out. There'll be, let's say, 100 million. Easier to do the numbers in the next year. We know that, on average, a user spends half an hour looking at his or her iPhone every day. If we put, this is the number that got me, an ad in every 3 minutes, that's 10 ad impressions per person. That's 1 billion ad impressions a day on our platform. And I can just see the dollar signs in Steve's eyes.
It's also 100
Shishing.
million broken devices from people slamming them to the ground.
Well, that was my
Yeah.
question. 3 ads. I mean, ad every. What
And
the?
ad every 3
looking
minutes.
forward
Now,
to
is
that
that
so
like
much.
while you're surfing the web, or is that while you're playing,
While you're using
Farmville or
any
whatever?
application with an iAd,
Oh my
No,
goodness!
no Farmville on the iPad because that's Flash.
we rule.
Right,
Ooh.
we rule.
Good
Sorry.
point, Veronica.
So we rule, which is basically a Farmville clone.
Yeah.
But by the way, We Rule uses its own gaming network. Apple also announced they're going to do a PS3 style gaming network.
That's what I think is super interesting. I really wonder what's going to happen to these networks like Plus Plus, which does the social networking aspect for games like We Rule and Titans.
Yeah.
They're basically pulling the rug out from underneath them.
Exactly. Open Faint. I use but now there is one problem, which is that there are a multiplicity of game networks now on the iPhone, and I'm in all of them because when you play, Bejeweled. What is it? Bejeweled Buzz or whatever they call it. Blitz. Bejeweled Blitz. You're in one ad network. I think that's Open Faint. If you're playing We Rule, you're in another gaming network. So I can see Apple will probably dominate here, just as they'll dominate in ads. So two things are going to happen. One is we're going to see a lot more ads on our iPhone.
Ugh.
Yeah, I can't say I'm happy about that.
Well, and especially, it's like I understand. It's like you want to excite developers to
Developers
do more
love
developing.
it.
But it's like I don't know. Are they really having a trouble that not enough people are developing for their platform that they need to attract some people to it?
Yeah.
Well, isn't it just about the user experience at the end of the day? They want to have a kind of unified gaming platform for people so that they can find their friends and work with them. And
I think
that
that's
makes
good.
sense to me. It just kind of sucks for the developers who've created these networks.
I do feel bad for them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if Facebook decided all of a sudden that they wanted to do, we keep talking about Farmville, which is...
But that's actually very apt because Facebook went the other way. They very intentionally opened up their application. They said, we're not going to do this. We're going to create a platform and encourage you to develop games.
Right, but imagine if all of a sudden Facebook was like, oh, look at all these millions and millions of dollars that Zynga is pulling in on Farmville and their other games. Why don't we just do this and make a platform where people can play a game like Farmville? And then suddenly all that network is dissolved in a sense. People find a better experience on the Facebook platform as opposed to in this tiny little microcosm of the application within Facebook.
So
we should all... Oh, go ahead. We should all keep in mind that we are Apple's outsourced beta testers and R&D department.
Always.
And they're going to, whether it's the people who buy version 1 pieces of hardware, the developers who invest in the new platforms, these people who create networks, Apple's clearly watching all this. And they're making smart decisions, but they're also selling each of the results of those decisions back to us.
So,
and we're generally happy with
this is interesting. My co-host from NSFW, Justin, just texted me saying that iAd essentially will take a whole bunch of $1 apps and make them free.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, man, would way rather spend the $1
and
to
not
have any ads. And you know what? If you have choice, then maybe that's cool.
The worst case scenario is you still play $1 and they have
Well,
ads.
that's what I'm afraid of, right?
That's
but if
exactly what's going to happen.
It's truly a case where you could do one or the other, then I'll be on board for
Look
that.
at the CNN app. You pay, I think, $3 or $4 for it, and it plays ads for you. The Wall Street Journal app on the iPad is a bad situation. So
all of the magazines seem expensive and have non-skippable ads. Is that right?
Yeah. Twitter acquires Tweety.
Yes.
Well, good and bad. This is another case where if you're a developer on the Twitter platform and all of a sudden Twitter is going to do the third-party apps.
It's the problem with building an entire company on someone else's API.
It's very similar.
Platform.
Well, and that's what Fred Wilson warned people a week ago. Fred Wilson, who does AVC.com, he was a venture capitalist, earlier investor in Twitter, and presumably has a pipeline into Twitter, said in his blog post last week, I probably wouldn't want to build a business on the third-party app platform right now. Little late, Fred. You could have told us a year ago when we were writing those. So Twitter now has a BlackBerry app of their own, and they own Tweety.
Which, by the way, the biggest thing that annoyed me about the decision to buy Tweety, I guess two things. First of all, I'm actually a TweetDeck guy myself. I like feeling like I have a command center of what the whole internet's thinking.
Really is a
what about on
command
your
center,
iPhone?
isn't it?
Same thing. It's pretty good on the iPhone. I
You
like
should see it on the iPad.
But
it's beautiful.
Maybe
there.
I'll try that.
I have seen it.
It's exactly like
I heard it wasn't very good.
But one of the
No,
things,
it's the same as the desktop, basically, because you have enough real
the
estate.
biggest thing that killed me is
I don't
that
use it.
they're going to change the name. They're not going to call it Tweety anymore. Tweety is synonymous with awesome iPhone app right now.
No, you know why they're not going to call it Tweety?
Why?
Because when you search for
optimization.
Twitter, what are you going to get? The Twitter app.
Oh, really?
That's
The Twitter app, not a Twitter app.
All right. Well, regardless, it's like
article.
it just kills me when you see all this brand value that's been built over so many years on a consistent product that performs well and whose
But
name
why should
means
Twitter
something.
care
That's
about
not
that?
going to
Yeah,
change. That's
Twitter's
not
a
going to
bigger
hurt anything
name
about
than
Tweety.
Tweety.
It's going to hurt other third-party developers that have been toiling to create these great applications, and now they have the 800-pound gorilla directly that they have to contend with.
So I guess we should listen to Fred Wilson, because what he says is, here's what you should do.
Don't give away.
If you really wanted to make money on Twitter, and basically I think what Fred is now the messenger saying, well, this is what we'd like you to do next. Now, if I'm a developer, I'm going to say, until when? Until you decide there's enough money in it that you want to take it over? But he says mining the search, mining the information there, and I think that's absolutely an opportunity.
But everyone who creates, this is an ISP question. When you run a platform and services on top of that platform.
Right.
You're going to have conflict with the people you outsource the service layer to. Right? So Twitter has an awkward position where new people coming to Twitter are not the techies on this show. They're not the techies listening to this show. They search the App Store for Twitter, and they get 30 apps. And they can't sort by the top rated.
Quality, yeah.
Right.
So you're searching for Twitter. You get
Welcome
Twitterific,
back around.
Twitter Pro, Tweety,
You know
Echophone.
who
What?
uses Twitter now?
That's crazy.
Ice-T.
Oh,
Let me talk about a little battle between
so I guess we're leaving now.
Academy Award
What's after
winner
Twitter, guys?
and Ice-T.
'Cause that is the
Academy
death.
Award winner Amy Mann and Ice-T got in a little Twitter battle. We need a name. Think about it, kids, while we're talking here.
Twaddle.
Okay, you did it. It's
Well,
done.
that was fast. Next topic.
Okay. He figured that one out fast. Twaddle. It's not. It's a Twitter battle. It's a twaddle.
Yeah.
Wow, you're good.
You're welcome, America.
I can see why. the Onion is paying you those big bucks.
His work here is done.
Yes, twaddle. It's easy. It's twaddle.
Sip of this.
Audible.com. It's time to mention our great friends at Audible. They do the
Oh, yeah.
the 70,000 book, or actually 70,000 title library of audio content, because it's not just books. You've got comedy performances, radio shows, performances of all kinds. I just love Audible. I want you to check it out at audible.com. And if you would like a free audio book from Audible, I can work that. That's not so hard to do. Just go to audible.com/twit2. In fact, I'm going to give you 2. You'll sign up for the Platinum account. That's what I use. It's 2 books a month. That's really, kind of not a lot. That's what's great about Audible. You might have said, well, I don't have time to read. 2 books a month, that's a lot. Well, you do, because there's all this time you spend in the car, in the gym, working in the house, that you could be listening to wonderful books on Audible, and you'd be surprised how fast 2 books a month can go. I tell you, I've have literally hundreds of books in my Audible library over the last 8 years.
Can I do some recommendations?
Would you do a
today?
recommendation?
Yeah.
I'd love that.
I'm going to recommend an author named Joe Hill. Joe_Hill on Twitter. Great writer. He's got Heart-Shaped Box,
Oh, I know that.
which is an incredible
Is that
book.
about? Was that about?
It's about an aging musician who buys a ghost off the internet.
Oh my God! Is that on Audible?
ghost?
It's on Audible, yes. But you got to read the book to find out what that means.
Well, I have a recommendation too.
Okay, good. Well, we need 2 books. So,
And Horns.
so Horns is another one.
Horns is a
Heart-Shaped Box or Horns by Joe Hill.
Hill.
Hey, you know what? Audible is having this half price sale right now, and that's one of the half price books is Heart-Shaped Box. So
Nice.
this is a good time to join Audible and get it for less, or get it for free by going to audible.com/twit2. Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, and your recommendation?
I think you may have recommended it last week. I heard through the grapevine, but I'm reading Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Is it good?
It's okay. So I had it on my Goodreads under the humor category. Yeah, it's not funny. It's really scary. It's like really super gory and kind of like I get that little twisting feeling in my stomach
You're
in some scenes
kidding.
when I'm listening to it. And I was like, wow, this is a lot more horror based than I imagined it to be.
Wow.
So, but it's really good.
So this is kind of in that Pride and Prejudice and Zombies vein.
Right.
Seth Graham Smith wrote this one. It's narrated by Scott Holtz. Let's listen to you want to listen to a little bit of this?
Yeah, I didn't love the narrator at first, and then I got used to it as it went on.
Oh, so you're listening to it. Okay.
Yes.
I saw the author's penmanship evolve from the overcautious script of a child to the tightly packed scribbling of a young man. I finished reading the last page, looked over my shoulder to make sure I was still alone, and turned back to the first. I had to read it again, right now, before reason turned its dogs on the dangerous beliefs that were beginning to march through my mind.
Ooh.
The little book began with these 7 absurd, fascinating words. This is the Journal of Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, this is
Dun,
this is.
We're all engrossed.
like, wow, what's
oh,
next?
Here, what's next?
Isn't it funny? It got completely quiet in here. That's what
But
happens.
keep going and
Yeah. No, you're gonna have to get the book. Go to
that was good sales.
audible.com/twit2. I tell you, I just love these books from Audible. I thank you, Veronica, for a stunning, sterling recommendation that you and Tom passed along, these Daniel Suarez books.
Oh, you love
Oh
them?
my God. If you
Yeah,
haven't
he's
read
great.
Demon and Freedom TM, you've got to.
I'm reading Demon right now.
Isn't it awesome?
I'm just in the first 20 to 30 minutes. I'm still warming.
Is it not the
into
best
it.
thing? Oh my God.
I'm really happy that people are enjoying them because they were just phenomenal books. And
And you
Daniel's such a
interviewed
great
him.
writer and a
Yeah.
smart guy. Yeah, we interviewed him on The Sword and Laser, and he was just wonderful to talk to. And he really knows that world inside and out, which
You
is
can
so
tell.
cool. Yeah.
He's speaking from in knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think they're actually very political books, which is kind of surprising. They start as pot boilers and exciting mysteries and techno mystery, but it's actually extremely political, and it's a lot of the issues we've just been talking about in many ways. So there's-
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's 2 more good books. You haven't really got that part yet.
No,
It's still just people are dying. It's just exciting. Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what. So I'm like, you didn't sense the super enthusiasm because I'm just waiting. I'm warming up to it.
No,
And I'm
no.
also,
No
I did
spoilers,
2
but-
Joe Hills back to back, and this is so different from that. So the tone, it takes my mind a minute to adjust to a new writing style.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's interesting about Suarez, though, is it's clearly he has a political agenda, and when you read the books, it develops it very logically. So you're drawn into this. By the end of it, you're going, why I oughta. Anyway, some great recommendations. Joe Hill, did you know that he's Stephen King's son?
I did. I was actually trying intentionally not to mention that
Why
way
give
to
him-
undo
why
that.
because he's Joe Hill,
Yeah.
and he's not his father. He's a great writer in his own right.
But it does make me want to read it because I'm a
if
huge
it helps
Stephen
sell
King
the books,
fan.
then yes, he's Stephen King's
But
son.
he's not Stephen King-like.
No, I mean there are similarities. I can't deny that.
I don't care if
There's
he's
something-
Stephen King like. I just
creep
want to know if he's
factor.
Stephen King talented.
But he's good.
I can't
he's
wait.
Very good.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess-
a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, he's very good.
So, man, we've got some stuff for you. Joe Hill. You can get 2 books if you want. There are at least 2 Joe Hill books on here.
Yeah, I think they have a collection of short stories in there too. I haven't heard that yet.
There is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And then, of course, then you can also, if you haven't read the Daniel Suarez novels, there's 2 great ones there as well. They are
And if you
sequels.
haven't listened to any, if you like chick mystery, I really love Laurie R. King's book. They're narrated by Jenny Sterlin, and they're amazing. It's all like an alternate version of the Sherlock Holmes canon. I may have talked about it before.
No, you haven't. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
taken from a female perspective, and it's really cool.
I'm putting that in my queue.
The Monstrous Regiment of Women.
Yeah, you want to go to the first one.
Folly?
The Language of
Keeping
Bees.
Watch?
No, that's
The
most
Language of
recent.
Bees. Okay.
That's the most recent one. The first one is crap. I can't remember the name of it now. The very first one she wrote, but they're great. There's like 8 or 9 different books.
Oh, man.
And
You
I
see why
finished
you
all
need
the
the
past
platinum plan? You start listening. And this is one of the things that really is interesting. We're all, just coincidentally, maybe not, we're all Audible listeners. And that's one of the things that happens when Audible listeners get together. They just start saying, well, what are you listening to? What's
Yeah, what
good?
are
In fact, actually, you guys, I could see the Audible snowball growing, and I was just like, not gonna say anything,
Because you have some
Well,
too.
no, yeah, but I'll save them for another
Save
time.
them for another time. It's just, look at folks, if you haven't yet tried Audible, do audible.com/twit2. I don't have to say any more, do I?
Someone reads you a story. That's great.
Yeah, it's like
How
your
does that
mommy.
suck?
What an amazing world we live in, where we all
Yeah.
have servants that read our stories for us.
That's how I think about it. I don't know how you guys use it.
Sometimes people who are talking about the end of newspapers say that, well, newspapers are not going to go away, but what will happen is only the very rich will have them. Your butler will iron it for you in the morning and bring it upstairs to you, perfectly pressed. And I think that's probably true. There will be some people who have paper books, but not many.
Yeah.
Not many. That's one of the other things that I think is going to be an interesting thing to watch is what happens to Kindle. Barnes & Noble just sent me the Nook for review. I didn't ask them. It just showed up one day. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I had put aside my Kindle, was using the iPad. It's a little weird to read a glowing screen versus a reflective screen. You have to turn it down at night because it's so bright.
You're talking about the iPad. You have to turn.
Yeah.
It on. Yeah. Now, were you sad that they sent it to you after you had touched and held an iPad? Did that?
No,
color your
I was
experience?
actually glad to. I think one of the reasons they did is I think they're going to start selling them at retail. So one of the issues is with these ebook readers is, except for the Sony, but the Kindle and the Barnes & Noble, I guess you could get them at Barnes & Noble, couldn't you?
Well, I know
If you go to the
I always see
bookstore.
booths up for you to touch
Okay,
them and
so
hold
you
them,
could.
but I
don't know if
don't
they
know
sell
if you could actually. I don't know.
I guess you can, because I think you do need to touch them and look at them, and they are really light. That is one of the advantages of them. You're not
One-handed
going to read an
operation like
iPad on the
Veronica's,
beach;
yeah.
it's illegible in the bright sunlight.
But then the Kindle is illegible in the dark bedroom.
Well, exactly.
So you have,
So where do you read them?
Are you
I
a
have a little
Morlock
clip light.
or
Right.
are you a human being?
I'm a Morlock, actually.
Can I ask a quick question? Because it's like the whole appeal of the Kindle is, of course, that you get the book reading experience, and I love it. I wish I had time to sit in a hammock and read old school
Right,
style.
who does that?
But I would say easily 80% of my text consumption is now audio. audio based when it comes to audiobooks. I mean,
because who has time? Well,
interesting.
You fly a lot.
Yeah.
So
there's
that's
a lot
one
of that.
reason. My eyes are tired. I think I want to listen.
For you, it's a laziness thing.
I'm lazy.
I pretty much do the audiobooks if I'm commuting, if I'm on the train, or if I'm sometimes on an airplane, but that usually puts me to sleep right away. Like the soothing talking, like in an airplane.
It does. It's very pleasant. Well, so what's wrong? Nothing wrong
Especially
with
when
sleep,
you have Barry
Veronica.
White reading your audiobook.
So-
that will.
Oh, baby.
So can I say something I was really surprised to see on the show notes for today is the Air Marshal article.
I couldn't resist putting that in there. It has
didn't
nothing to
catch
do
that.
with tech.
What happened?
Do you want to tell us a story?
Well, yeah, somebody had forwarded this over to me, and basically it's a Congressman John J. Duncan Jr. I actually don't even know if he's Republican or Democrat. I assume a Democrat. But he.
Why do you assume that?
Well, because it's not often that Republicans speak out against any of the
Air
the
marshals.
the air marshals.
So just so you know, we spend over $800 million a year,
Per year.
on the Air Marshal program.
and we average 4 arrests per year.
No. There have been a total of
Oh, I'm sorry.
4.2 arrests.
since the inception of
No,
the
that can't be
Air
right.
Marshal.
That can't be right. Do you have the story? That can't be. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
no, I
getting
have
that
it in
wrong.
front of me. He says, first of all, the job of the Air Marshal, and this is all his words. I just find it fascinating, though. The job of the Air Marshals is to ride on planes back and forth, back and forth, back
That's
and
all
forth.
they do.
That's all they do. And literally,
With a gun.
I guess, well, with a gun,
Okay.
I guess. And literally, I guess one of the side effects is apparently they get rowdy. Like more Air Marshals have been arrested
Far more.
than have arrested people.
For all kinds of felonies. Far more. Like
To the tune of almost $1 billion a year. I'm sorry, $800 million since the beginning. He said we're averaging $200 million per arrest, is what he said.
That's what it costs.
So what do you get if you arrest an air marshal?
Shot
Maybe
in
like
the
a
head.
citizen's arrest.
Like, can you get some of that money back?
I don't know.
That's
It's
amazing.
a fascinating little speech, and it's like he does not equivocate at all. And
Yeah.
it's so rare that you hear somebody take such a powerful stance on something that's so unpopular to target.
It's not tech, except we talk about it all the time because it's very clear, and people like security experts like Bruce Schneier have said again and again that all of this TSA stuff is security theater. It's
By the
not
way,
real security.
Somebody in the chat room pointed out he's a Republican,
don't
which I'm
say
shocked.
That's
by.
what I thought.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
That makes me so nervous. I fly too much.
You don't want
I don't
to.
want to think it's just theater, even though, I like to
It
have
is
that little.
theater.
Just say you're an air marshal and you can do whatever
Look
you
what
want.
happened with this
Right.
this most recent thing that went up crazy on Twitter. The Qatar diplomat.
the smoking smoker.
He went into the bathroom and smoked. And then the stewardess said, "You can't do that." And he said, "Oh, I was lighting my shoe on fire." Oh, you don't say that.
What is that?
You don't say that. So, of
Wait,
course.
you said that like as a joke?
Yeah.
Oh, my
the
God.
plane is diverted.
Brilliant.
All the network news shows go live. We have an incident in the air.
We have a bad joke in the air. Somebody's made a foolish decision.
Millions of dollars.
Comedy
Millions
alert.
of dollars later. We find out, well, he's just and I think he's going to get expelled, but that's it. He's not going to get a.
Yeah, not going to any jail time.
No.
They should make him an air marshal.
In fact, the U.S. government said we don't really want to make an international incident out of this. They should make him an air marshal.
Yeah, that's
With
your
a sense of
punishment.
humor like that, you ought to be an air marshal, dude.
I love the Doppler effect on that joke. It was like 30 years later.
Well, you know how it is. When you're trying to coordinate everything, it's like, you only got 10% of your brain actually listening.
Yeah.
No, I'm like that anyway. That's just how I
Delayed.
am.
I was going to say, of all the security things that drive me crazy, it's that they can't decide what they want to do about the Kindle. Like they can't decide if
Really?
it's a little
Leave it
laptop
on,
or if
turn
it's
it
something
off.
okay to leave in your bag. So I just take it out all the time and put
Well,
it
and
in
plus-
a tray with the laptop. And
Does anybody, when you're flying, and this is a point of etiquette, like I want to comply with the rules, right? But
Oh,
when
yeah,
you've got
sure.
an
You're a
iPhone,
real rule keeper kind of guy.
I've got conformist written all over me.
Yeah.
But it's like, for takeoff and landing, they say make sure your devices are turned off.
Right.
It's like, put it in airplane mode and click the button. Is that good enough? I
You
mean,
can't turn a Kindle off.
well, oh, really?
I
At
guess you
all?
could shut it
Well,
down.
no, you can turn it off all the way. It
You can
just
shut it
takes-
down.
But like with the
Yeah.
iPhone, though,
Stupid.
it's like you turn it off, you got to wait 3 minutes for it to boot
Right.
up afterwards.
Kindle's worse.
Yeah, no, I do airplane mode.
Yeah.
That's
I do
off
airplane
to me.
mode, too.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm off the network.
That's off.
There's no screen on, so
Yeah,
it's
so
probably
that's
off.
It's all,
off.
we often get we have many, in fact, I can tell you right now, there are airline captains listening to this.
Yeah.
Steam is coming out of their ear. But
But
it's,
Mythbusters busted it, didn't they?
yeah, I don't know. Is that scientific?
Well, and but that
Scientific
goes,
enough for me.
I love Adam, but come on. Is that proof? You're a
We had him on
magician.
Buzz Out Loud talking about that like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'll say when it comes to security, perception is everything. When it comes to if the
exactly
airline
right.
pilots believe that it's interfering with their device, then
That's
you better
all it
believe
needs.
we're going to act like it
Here's
interferes with the device.
The first legitimate excuse I've heard for the turn things off during takeoff and landing,
Yeah.
which had nothing to do with interference. There was a little fear of like hundreds of people with devices, maybe something unpredictable could happen.
Right.
It was more about mental attention, which is
I think that's
those
a
are
lot
the
of it.
times in the flight where you're most likely to have some kind of emergency announcement going on, and they just want you to hear them. And I know if I have my iPod on, like I've been on the subway in New York, and I have missed announcements about this train switching from local to express, or we're stopping right here.
I've walked
me
into busy
too.
intersections.
Right.
What
And so
forget
on a
that.
flight, though, that could be really important. So
yeah.
I actually appreciate, I wish they were just honest about it. The idea that you're going to take these super busy, hyper local, self-involved people with their
Right.
devices and just make them be a part of the
Pay
same space
attention.
for 5 minutes.
Pay attention.
You could do this for 5 minutes, people, and
No,
then
I
go back to
can't.
your lives.
No, I can't.
Come on, Leo.
No, I can't
Come
do
on,
it.
Leo.
Can't do it.
Yes, you can.
So we were talking about how the real world has come to Twitter. I just love watching the twaddle.
I'm going to regret that.
Amy Mann.
It's a good name because it sounds like mindless prattle, It's
Amy
good.
Mann, who won an Oscar or nominated for an Oscar for her music for some movie.
Magnolia, right?
Magnolia.
Yeah.
Love that song.
Yeah.
She tweets April 8th, Christ, there's no reason in the world anyone should ever have cast Ice-T in a television show.
Which makes me sad because I really like him on Law and Order.
I heard he was good. I don't watch the show, but I've heard good things.
Okay, so
Yeah, he's
Ice-T is
great on
not...
that.
Ice.
He's
Oh,
been
really?
acting
Is he?
for a while.
Is he?
I think
What
he's
is
great.
Ice-T
I think
known
he's
for?
A great actor on that show.
started as
the
a
body
rapper.
count song "Cop Killer."
Cop Killer. Okay.
And
So just wanna know.
thousands
Makes
of
it even
others.
more funny.
So probably you really wouldn't want to insult somebody named Cop Killer. So Ice-T responds with a twaddle. It's Twitter battle time. He says, hey, Amy Mann, stop worrying about my acting, bitch, and worry about your whack-ass music. In the meantime, eat a hot bowl of...
What's funny is I saw the tweet and I was like, which of these words is Leo going to say? And which will he not? Which will he
Hot
not
bowl
say?
of Nintendo Wiis.
Nintendo Wii.
Nice. Okay, Veronica, I think that's the show
Is that,
title.
yeah, the hot bowl of Nintendo
I was going
Wiis.
to pull for my own because I liked what I said, but that was hot.
So unfortunately for this Twitter battle, it kind of ended before it began because then Amy Mann says, oh no, someone just told me that Ice-T responded to my tweet about him. That can't be good.
And by someone, she means the infrastructure of Twitter itself
Yeah.
with the at reply.
Someone at reply. She says,
Well,
I'm not
yeah,
going to
she
read
used
it.
the at reply to reference Ice-T, though. So
She doesn't understand what's going on. Well, his handle is, what is his handle? Final level.
I don't know what that. Yeah, that's weird.
Sounds ominous.
Anyway,
Okay, so
But like-
she says, I'm not going to read it. I don't want him mad at me in capital letters. And then says, plus, I do not like to hurt people's feelings. I forget Twitter's not just me and 4 other dorky friends ragging on TV stars. So
I
Ice-T
think she.
Ice-T makes it out. He's out there doing his job. He doesn't need any heckling from the peanut gallery. I kind of thought this was classy.
Yeah, you know what? For the record, exactly how I will respond to any conflict ever is Amy Mann's response. I will completely
talk
roll
about
over.
apologizing coming from
there's
Brian
like
over
four-
here. We had a little over apologizing incident a couple weeks
Oh,
ago.
did
didn't we,
you?
Brian?
Oh, tell me about that. What happened?
I missed it. What happened?
What
I'm
happened?
making him relive this. Over
Okay,
and over
I will
because I think it's
relive it.
hilarious.
We South by Southwest was an amazing time, and we went to the GDGT party, and we noticed that any tweets that say GDGT will show up on this big monitor,
Right.
and it was like, hey, that'd be kind of funny. Put some, and I.
Are you
was
hacking
very-
Twitter again?
I was very clear and said, hey guys, if you could keep it totally clean, it'd be kind of fun to put some messages up here.
Oh, dear.
And then, and for the 90% of it, they were funny and clean, and then
And
one.
somebody said, eat a bowl of Wiis.
and then one was not good.
Oh, dear.
And that's the exact moment I'm like, oh, that needs to go away. And then over my shoulder, I hear Veronica say, what is going on?
Oh,
and I go
dear.
100% Amy Mann. I immediately roll
over.
and crumble in
Groveled for a good
apology.
long
Legs in the
10
air.
minutes.
I am so
And then
sorry.
he continued to grovel on his show like the next week.
Oh,
I was
that's
like, I
good.
don't really care. I was just teasing you. I went up to him and I was like, what did you do?
Well,
what did
at least you
do?
didn't wait and brood until you had a highly visible moment to call
To
me out
tweet it.
on it in
Yeah.
front of everyone. Oh, wait, that's exactly what you're doing.
Oh, damn.
So how does
It
this?
was awesome.
How did the twaddle end? You've kind of got
So
me
he's
hanging.
out there doing his job. He doesn't need any heckling. So Final Level, that's his last album, I guess. Ice-T says, okay, homegirl apologized. Say no more. FLTG. What's that
I don't
mean?
know what that
That's got to be
stands for.
final level something
Ceasefire.
group.
Once again, there's peace in Twitterland. Ice-T.
That's beautiful.
That's sweet. They're all.
It's a Twitter fairy tale.
Yeah, it's like a first grade fight, and then you shake hands, like you're forced to shake hands at the end.
That's what we need to do on the internet. Every time there's a fight, we need to walk down a line of each other saying, good game, good game, good game,
I mean,
good game.
besides that being kind of adorable and heavily awkward, I think that there is a lesson in it, which is how public this is.
Boy, and I
Right?
think that people don't
people
realize.
don't quite understand what they're participating in.
But that's the charm of
that
it,
it's
isn't it?
searchable, that it's retweetable, that it's screen grabbable.
Well,
Right.
they deleted. Amy Mann immediately deleted it.
but
right?
it doesn't matter because we're
Doesn't matter.
talking about it.
It's there.
That's
So
too
she
late.
didn't delete it. I mean,
Lives
you can't go back in time and undo it. That's the only way to
forever.
truly delete anything online now.
It's kind of a sweet story, though. You're right.
FLTG or FLTG is final level Twitter gang. That's his posse online.
Oh, so like I have the Twit Army. He has.
He's got the
tightest
FLTG.
social
I wanna see
network
FLTG
that the
versus
world
the Twit
has ever
Army.
How long-
seen, started by
What?
Ice-T on Twitter.
So what do you have? What do you call?
Scooter X.
What do you call your fans, Veronica?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you have an acronym
don't
for
have-
them?
No,
We
should
got to
make one
work
up.
on that.
Dane said the Veronica Cats.
The Veronica,
the Veronica
Cats.
Cats.
Ooh, I like that. It's relevant on so many different levels.
Yeah. Well, Dane's good at that. He's
Nice.
a wordsmith, as is Baratunde. What do you call your fans, Baratunde?
People,
Gentlemen.
human beings,
Humans.
citizens.
Whiskey swillers.
Guys.
Baratunde's whiskey swillers.
Yeah, they're part of various hashtag armies that are built and destroyed as the crow flies.
Do you have a name, Brian, for the?
You know, we haven't decided what the NSFW folk are going to be called, but I'm pulling hard for like the Brain Dead Monkey Patrol or something. I don't know.
It sounds like a punk band or something.
or dolphin. Whatever, you know.
Wow! Hey, America and
you
other
are.
countries listening.
There's an
it's-
example
It's
of
the Danger Dane Golden tapes all over again.
never letting him live it down. Sorry
Actually,
about
I
that.
did create a term for my army called Fran Scrollowers.
I saw that.
Fran Scrollo.
I love that. Tell us about that.
Baratunde.com/Fran Scrollo, and it's friend, fan, subscribe, and follow, all merged into a new internet word, to Fran Scrollo. I made a verb, and you're welcome.
I love that.
Awesome.
Fran Squallow.
Fran Scrollo.
What is Fran Squallow?
Scrawl.
Scrawl.
Scrollo.
That's
Scrawl.
good.
Am I saying it right?
Say it.
Fran Scrollo?
This is, by
yeah,
the way,
Fran Scrollo. It's great.
what is this story with his picture? Is that a bong?
What are you talking about?
That's a big
That's my laptop.
bottle.
Looks like a laptop to me.
No, next to the laptop. Silly. Come on.
No, it's.
Oh.
I was like, this just in. Leah Laporte does not recognize a mobile computing device.
No, next
Thanks
to
to
the
his
laptop.
marijuana
I suppose
paraphernalia.
we all see
Oh, it's a
what we
big
want
wine
to see.
bottle.
It's an
It's a
empty
big wine bottle.
No,
Okay.
actually, that picture was taken by Michael Galper, this aviary.com, really cool photo service. We were out and someone
Oh, I
said,
love Aviary. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really cool service, cool people behind it. And a domain name was tossed into the air, and we were competing to buy it the fastest.
Oh.
And I tried to get it on my iPhone, and it was too slow, so I broke out the big
laptop,
guns,
and that's what's
the
going on
EVDO
there.
card. So that's me very seriously purchasing a domain name that I've never used.
I love
Oh,
that.
I've got all my domain stuff bookmarked on my iPhone, so if I think of something on the go, I can
Oh,
just
that's
go grab
smart.
it
See?
So you
right
can
away.
what do you use? Just out of curiosity.
I use GoDaddy because we get discounts on Revision 3 and Texilla. I'm plugging. They're not like my favorite, but I like to support my company.
I had a speaking of the publicity of Twitter, I said something horrible about GoDaddy on Twitter.
I say something about horrible
And
them in public all the
here's
time.
the thing. Companies
hate
will
Bob
contact
Parsons.
you. And so I said a really a horrible thing. I don't like their Super Bowl commercials.
That's what I don't
their
like.
interface.
It's
I don't
horrible.
like the attitude.
It's hideous.
So I'm trying to leave.
Now, hold on.
It's very
This is-
hard.
This is unfair.
They're also-
GoDaddy provides domains for only $7.49 when you use the code SCAM10 at checkout.
Well-
and I will not sit here and listen
And I'm not trying to
you impugn
undermine
indignity.
your sponsor, sir, your family. However,
That's going to get bleeped, by the way.
with
That will
all-
not
with
get
all due
bleeped.
respect-
That will not get
Leave
bleeped.
Veronica and Brian fun.
with all due respect, what happened is, the company tweeted back at me, I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. How can we help you? And it was awkward because I didn't want that. Like sometimes you just want to yell out loud.
Yeah. I
And
hate
you
it when
don't
they try
want
to make peace. I
To
hate
be, customer served.
that. I hate when they serve you. I hate that.
But I was like, I guess this
hate
is
it
what I
when you're
want.
trying to hate a company
attention.
and they're
human.
nice to you.
No, sometimes you just want to hate.
Yeah.
And then let that be the end of it. So I've found myself in an awkward position of having to acknowledge them.
I just hate it when that happens.
you don't have to.
This is like the storybook ending. Sometimes you just want to hate.
Yeah.
I've done that before. I
Between that
said
and
something bad about someone, but usually Monster Cable. I say bad things
Yeah,
about.
it's easy to say bad things
Every
about
geek
them.
says something
No.
bad about
Yeah.
You know
them.
how it goes.
They're the ones
they
that,
don't
sue
make any
anybody
sense.
named Monster. Like
Really?
oh, yeah. There was
Monster.com? Did they try that?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I guess they were too big, but they go after the mom and pop stuff.
Wow.
They went after a putt-putt golf place called Monster Mini
Going
Golf.
after Sesame Street with all
whenever
the
they-
monsters running around.
Yeah.
Whenever their name comes up, it's always from geeks who are telling me that they shouldn't exist. Because they sell themselves as a premium cable,
Right.
and people say, "Look, go to this site. This is as good as Monster without, it costs 10 times less."
Everybody knows monoprice.com. Boom.
Yeah, that's where everybody sends me.
Yep, that's all there is
Monoprice
to do.
rules.
Monoprice rules.
All right, that was geeky.
By the way, I just would like to report that on Monday, January 5th, 2009, Monster Cable and Monster Mini Golf met to discuss and resolve the trademark infringement situation. They've reached an amicable agreement.
What about Monsters Inc. the movie?
Oh, that's a good question.
Dude.
What
They're
about
next on the
Monster
list.
Energy drink.
How could you serve?
What about actual
What about
monsters under my bed?
monsters? Yeah.
What are they going to do about the monsters under my
We went there
bed?
at the same time. That was awesome. But what about monsters?
There was
Understanding the
actual
monsters in all of this.
There was actually recently a claim and I wish I knew all the details of it, but basically the claims Monster was making about the quality of its audio components were so outrageous that they actually applied for James Randi Educational Foundation's $1 Million Paranormal Challenge, where basally has a $1 million challenge to anyone who can prove something supernatural. Like, that's how good they were claiming their cables were.
I think, didn't Randy himself say something like, he offered James Randi, no, I think you got it wrong. He offered $1 million, right?
If they could prove that they were substantially better.
Because they have $7,000 speaker cables.
Right.
And so, literally.
Which is a bit of a departure for the JREF, but I guess it would be supernatural if it was, $7,000 better.
He's great. I love him. All right, I think we've run out of topics. If we're talking about amazing Randy and speaker cable.
I bought an iPhone
we're just getting to the
cable
good
on
stuff.
Monoprice for like $3.49 with shipping.
Aren't they amazing?
6-foot long iPhone cable.
And it's good, right? It works,
Awesome.
right? Yeah. They're not an advertiser. Nobody gets any GoDaddy coupon code from them, but we might as well give them a plug because they really do a great job. I wonder who these guys are because they're beloved by geeks everywhere.
The Monoprice people?
If they
Get 'em on the
came
show.
to South by Southwest, people would
They would
body
kill it.
surf
It's
them.
weird how many super popular sites don't ever really commercialize it. Like Snopes.com. I still don't know who those people are.
Oh, there was a great
Who we
article in
all-
the Times about
Great.
that.
Yeah?
Have you seen
Snopes
that?
is
No,
awesome
no, tell
for
me
when
about
your
it.
mom sends you chain letters and you want to prove that they're not real. You just send her the Snopes link. Just make sure you don't send it to everyone that she sent it to because then she feels really bad after.
Yes.
Because you're kind of embarrassing her publicly, like on
Yeah.
Twitter.
You have to learn how to delicately.
It's like a twaddle in that case.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because this week, Brian Stelter in the New York Times wrote an article about Barbara and David Mickelson, the couple that runs Snopes.
diligently, year after year.
Wow.
Says for well over a decade, they've acted as arbiters in the age of misinformation by answering the central question posed by every chain letter. Is this true? 7 to 8 million uniques a month.
Wow.
After 14 years, they say people are pretty cavalier about the facts. So they did quit their jobs, and they do this full time for a living.
How recently? I mean, I would have assumed like a decade ago.
They started in 1996 as an online encyclopedia. They were folklorists
Wow.
of myths and urban legends. Actually, they were kind of fake folklorists.
They were enthusiasts.
They were a hoax themselves?
He did well, kind of. He would send out. He printed up letterhead that said the San Fernando Valley Folklore Society, which didn't exist.
Right.
And he would do research about folklore. He was interested in the
too
origins
meta.
of tall tales and stuff. Like the guy with the killer. With the prosthetic hook that's
Yes, of
the
course.
Haunted
Urban
Lovers
legends.
Lane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the guy in the bathtub with the ice and the kidney.
And
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
the
know,
kidney.
and I'm kind of sad for young kids who grew up in a world where there
was no way to verify it.
Yeah, it's like, for us, it's like growing up, it's like, well, of course, your teeth will immediately rot out of your head if you drink Coca-Cola. But it's like the first time I discovered the site, and it was in 1996, back when I was in college, it was 6 hours of this descent into, no way. That's not true either.
Yeah.
No way.
It's
Tell
like,
me that's,
it's like
no
being
way.
told Santa's not real. There's no tooth fairy.
That's
like,
right.
all
it's
at
kinda-
one time.
It's like you know how everyone has iPhones with them all the time or some kind of internet capable device at any time. And it's ruined all those really fun moments where you're trying
true.
to like remember something
No
or
more
you're
bar
having a bet
bets.
with someone and going
Yeah.
back and forth.
yeah.
Actually, Brian's
Snopes
made
is
a
kinda
living
like
on
that in a
bar
way.
bets.
Snopes is
That's
the
true.
anti-fun.
We love Snopes. So the Mickelsons, thank you for doing such a good job.
And I got warned in the chat room, spoiler alert, about Santa not being real. I'm sorry to
Oh, shoot.
all the children of the world.
No, he's real.
It's just claims.
Life
you didn't
is
say he
simple,
it is
brutish,
alleged.
and short.
It is alleged that there's no Santa
Just because
Claus.
he stopped bringing you presents doesn't mean he's not real.
Oh!
That's what Jennifer says. When somebody
Who
asks
are
her,
you, Miss Belmont?
when Jennifer, my wife, when somebody asks
You're
her about
listening.
Santa Claus, she says, "Well, there are some people who don't believe. I happen to," and I think that's all that needs to be said. I happen to believe.
My 6-year-old cornered me.
Really, 6?
Yeah. Well,
My
she's-
kids were
she's a critical
teenagers
thinker.
before they really.
She well, and I tried so hard to dance around it. She was just like, Daddy, is Santa Claus real? I was like, well, the magic of Christmas is real. I mean, we all enjoy playing. And then
you loser.
and then she goes, Daddy, do you believe
Be
Santa
real
Claus
with me
is
right
real?
now, Daddy.
And I was like, me?
Straight up, Daddy.
No. And then she goes, it's okay, Dad. Neither do I.
Oh my God!
And then she comforted you and gave you a hug.
But what's funny is complete reversal 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
no, I was thinking about it. I'm
No,
pretty
she
sure there
believes
is a
in him
Santa
now,
Claus.
yeah.
That
I figured it
is
out because
hilarious.
Santa and my mom use the same wrapping paper.
Yeah, that's I used to write in spidery script. I used to write letters from Santa to the kids and leave it with the bitten cookie and the half-eaten carrot.
We have on the Tooth Fairy side of this. I'm just thinking of this Onion photo we did. It says Tooth Fairy claims extra teeth, and it just shows like a bloody pillow with like lots of $1 bills there.
That's bad.
No,
It sounds like, I don't know, like a hooker
At least she
crime.
paid up.
There's a bunch of missing teeth and blood and dollar bills.
well, no, because people react very interestingly. But I was just really excited. Speaking of Snopes and hoaxes and everything, to see some of the reviews of our iPhone app are people who still don't get it, and they're legitimately upset that the news that we're reporting, they can't find verification of it anywhere else, and it makes them sad. But it also is very effective for traffic. So it's nice.
I love the Onion. You'll find Baratunde at baratunde.com. And he is the web editor for The Onion, also a stand-up comic, does a Whiskey
Fridays, the hashtag. I'm at the Punchline in San Francisco tonight, 8 o'clock.
Oh, so if you're listening live.
Yeah, so come on down. The sun looks like it might be trying to come out up here.
Just in time for night.
Get the Onion's iPhone app. Search for the Onion in the app store that we've just been talking about.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's free.
So great to have you in studio. I just love
Wonderful
having
to
you
be
here.
back.
Thank you for coming
so
in.
much. Yeah.
And same to you, Mr. Brian Brushwood of Shwood.com.
Indeed. We're doing NSFW tonight since I'm here.
Stick around.
Yeah, from the cottage.
So you're competing a little bit with the Punchline. I don't know. No, you still have time. You'll be done by 8.
I invited Baratunde, right?
You'll be
at the
done
beginning.
by
Yeah, I'd
8.
already booked the gigs.
What time is
Sorry.
it? You can make it both.
It's like 8 to 10.
Oh, no,
it's not just
you
me.
can't
it's
make
a bunch-
that.
I really can't.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But stay tuned, because after East Meets West, which is coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll have NSFW live in studio.
Absolutely.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Shwood.com is the website. Don't forget Scam School and Revision 3, and Brian performs at colleges all over the country. If you'd
Yeah, and
like,
I've gotten lazy on my booking. So if anyone wants me to come to their hometown, just talk to your student activities group at colleges.
and have them go to Shwood.com.
Yeah, tell them about the show, and they say they should bring me in.
It's a great show. It's just worth it to see his wife stand on him in heels on a bed of nails.
I want to see that.
Well, I saw it at South by Southwest. It was
That
quite
was a heck of a time. What an amazing
You guys
time.
like to share your love with the world.
She is a lovely woman, by the way.
She
I was
really-
happy to have
I-
gotten to meet her at South by.
Yeah, I was so glad to meet somebody who could actually tolerate this guy.
But by the way, while you were talking to Odocta a couple weeks ago, Bonnie, like for the 3 seconds that she walks into the room while I'm watching TWiT live, she walks in and then you and Odocta start talking about her, and she's like, "What the what?"
Well, that's all we do all the time when we talk about her. Actually, she's it's not that unusual.
Oh,
frankly,
Doctor is the greatest.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Veronica Belmont works for Core, which you can get on your Sony PlayStation 3, QORE. Subscribe. You must subscribe. And, of course, you can watch her on Techzilla with my buddy, Mr. Patrick Norton. The regular Techzilla daily updates and Techzilla every week at TEKZILLA.com.
Thank you for having me.
Anything else you'd like? Oh, Sword and Laser?
Sword and Laser with Tom Merritt, who you may also know from Eats. I can't say the
Nobody
name of
can
their
say
show.
it, especially
Eats Meets West?
Eats Meets
Can't
Wheat?
East meets West, and also have seen it. So
Yeah.
it's our sci-fi fantasy book club and podcast, and we've been a little slow on the updates lately, but we're going to try to move it to a more frequent schedule soon.
I just love it. And do go back if you get a chance and listen to the Daniel Suarez interview.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great interviews on there.
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Thanks, Veronica, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. TWiT is now available on video, on demand, on iTunes. You can also watch it on YouTube, youtube.com/TWiT. If you have a Roku box, somebody complained to me that it's not going up fast, but we get it up the same day, don't we? Yeah. You'll get it up Monday mornings on your Roku box, so you can watch it after the fact. And we're working on streaming on the Roku box and all the devices. You can now stream it live on the iPad, thanks to Houdini7, who wrote that great TwitPad application. You must have it if you have an iPad. Of course, we have it also on the iPhone. Lots of ways to watch the show, both live and after the fact. If you want to tune in live at live.twit.tv, we do the show every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 2200 UTC. Live.twit.tv. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Another TWiT is in the can.
I can always hear it. Yeah, round the horn.
It's funny because
Doing the TWiT, baby.
I haven't listened to the show itself in so long. I forgot about that. We have music, don't we? It is good.
Actually, I
music.
just skip to the end
Our
sometimes.
closing music
Why do I
for
feel like it was a mistake for me and Baratunde to impersonate that song?
That was a great idea.
What's your closing music on Texilla?
Bow, bow.